Ready to begin?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Check, I think we're good.
All right. Report, one report from closed sessions. On April 18th, 2024, the board took the following action in closed session. The board approved settlement claim 2223-03 as recommended by Keenan and Associates, our property and liability administrator, and authorized the assistant superintendent business services to process all items relating to the processing of the settlement. The vote was as follows: 5 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 abstentions. All right, I'm going to take roll, starting with our student board members, Megan Taft, Emma Ritter,
Here.
and Brandon Burton.
Here.
Trustee Smithfield.
Here.
Trustee Vargas.
Here.
Trustee Morocco. Trustee Kelly.
Here.
And I am here. We're all present and accounted for. The next is the approval of the agenda. I'm going to ask if somebody would be amenable to placing 9A after 4.
Yes.
Can you make a motion?
I make a motion that we move the student board member report for Major General Murray High School to in front of item 5, district announcements on this evening's agenda.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas to move 9A in front of number 5. Any further discussion? Any other changes to the agenda?
A request perhaps, Dr. Doyle, could you please watch the time and let us know if there's any critical votes that we might run out of time for, and suggest if any of these items should be reordered?
The items I would suggest if we run out of time is that we could potentially postpone 9C and 9D. There's no time sensitivity to them, but the other 2, B and E, are time sensitive.
And I am
So
also.
maybe we could reorder those.
Mhm.
Can we move 9? Can I make a motion to move items 9C and D to just after item, the end of consent calendar? Slot them in ahead of discussion and action items 16 on the agenda.
Already made a motion, so just an amendment.
Friendly amendment to my motion. Thank you.
So I heard you say we're gonna move 9C and D to, right?
Just after consent calendar, just before item 16.
Okay, before item 16. 9C and D.
And I would have something about the agenda too,
Okay,
just kind of procedurally. I'm wondering if that we could just forego the presentations. Just see if anybody has questions for the presentations and then, on the slide decks. Rather than going through an entire presentation for the sake of time.
The 2, you're referring to 2, there are B and E at this point.
Yeah.
And both of those presentations have the content for which you will be making a decision on, or giving us, not voting, but giving us direction on.
Okay, can we ask for?
We can abbreviate it, but
Abbreviate it.
we need to make sure you get the information necessary in
Right.
order to give us feedback.
I would just, suggest, in terms of governance, each trustee has their 2 to 3 minutes to comment or question, and that we adhere to those time slots unless 3 out of the 5 want to further and continue the discussion. If we could stay to that.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of approving the agenda with the modifications, the aforementioned modifications? Yes.
Question concerning the agenda, but not moving things. So I had asked that we talk about the behavior specialist and our board policies and stuff. I had asked for that to be on the agenda. Is there a reason why it's not?
I think it might have been an oversight, trustee.
No, we
What was
spoke
it?
about that. We just didn't have room for this meeting, but we will have it on in an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda with the aforementioned changes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, the motion carries. The agenda is approved as detailed and discussed. 9A, so we have our student board member Emma Ritter, and she will be presenting the report for Murray High School. Welcome, Emma.
All right, well, thank you, President. We have actually two board members here, Brandon and Emma,
Uh-huh.
and their principal is here to introduce both of them. But we do have to congratulate Brandon because he is a graduate. So congratulations. And so Brandon, before we give the report, tell everyone what you're gonna do next.
What are you doing? I just enlisted into the United States Navy.
I'll have the principal introduce the report.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the board, Dr. Doyle. My name is Joel Miller. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the principal of alternative education at Major General Murray High School and Alta Vista High School, our continuation sites, as well as Vista Visions, our online academy. I'm here to introduce you to Miss Emma Ritter, who is a senior at Murray. She's joined here today by her parents, Rick Ritter and Carol Ritter, as well as some of my staff and support providers, all in support of Emma. But I do want to highlight that, of course, it's a new experience for all of our board members to write and read a report in a public forum to elected officials. This is Emma's first ever board meeting, so I think we should welcome her and thank her. It is, I first met Emma when Coach David Henry, who's in the room with us, our campus security, who we lovingly call Coach because of his work with the Continuation Sports League, brought Emma in, and Emma wanted to be the board rep, and Coach was kind of off to the side, and he said, Emma, don't tell him, ask him, smile, So I knew that Emma was going to be the perfect candidate with that confidence to be our student board rep. And so while we are very excited, sad to see Brandon go, we're very excited that he's going to be serving our country in the Navy. And so with no further ado, I'll give Emma a chance to tell her story. She's graduating with us in about 7 weeks. She wants to be a nurse and or a cosmetologist, maybe even both of those things. So ladies and gentlemen, our next NICU nurse, our next cosmetologist, our new alt ed board rep at Murray, Miss Emma Ritter.
Good evening, esteemed members of the student board. My name is Emma Ritter, and I am representing Major General Raymond Murray High School, Alta Vista High School, Vista Visions Academy, and Vista Visions Academy, our 3 alternative education sites in the USD. Today, I will be sharing my experience and my journey at Murray. I started high school in 2020. As everyone knows, that was the year COVID-19 hit. What was supposed to be a fun experience turned into an isolating experience where I felt as if I was alone on lockdown. And in addition to that, not getting the same interaction I would in school with friends began to have an effect on my emotions. So when school resumed, I was still unmotivated and I was lost with the direction I was supposed to be going. I no longer wanted to attend class, so I started ditching and getting in trouble. Needless to say, this is how I ended up at Murray. When I transferred to Murray during my sophomore year, the school was much different than it is today. I thought of the school much the same as my old one. I continued to do much of the same at Murray as I did at Rancho, skipping class, hopping the fence, and leaving. I needed help, and lectures from my family weren't encouraging me to change. I ended up in Project Aware after an altercation. Little did I know it was a blessing in disguise. And with this weekly program, we regularly sat in a circle and did self-reflecting exercises. Hearing other students share their thoughts and feelings helped me relate and open up to myself more and others. After this program, I became more motivated and finally had hope I would graduate. A number of staff members stepped up when I was in need and provided valuable support and reliable adult connections. Specifically, school secretary Natalie Balderas and campus assistant / coach David Henry have helped me through conflicts with my peers and with my teachers. They've also supported me through hard times when I was unwilling to receive that support. And they've always been open, welcoming, and easy to talk to. My mentor, Reggie, recently offered me an internship, which would allow me to help other students tackle the same struggles I had in high school. I can honestly say this program has changed my life. Another program that piqued my interest was tutoring younger students at Bobier Elementary. This program helped Bobier students accelerate while also helping Murray students gain experience and build structure. Last year, I learned how to cook empanadas in cooking class with Chef Eliza. Garden 31, Project Aware, and the Bobier Elementary Tutoring Program are just some of the examples of the unique experience offered at MGM that have helped me and others succeed. Alta Vista also offers many of the same programs and opportunities that MGM offers. Students have reported from both campuses that they prefer the small school environment that our continuations offer. And many students attribute the teaching, activities, and even sports reasons for their success in high school at Alta and Murray. The district also offers an online-only school, which gives students the opportunity to earn their diploma completely from home at Vista Visions Academy. Overall, I believe that my time in Vista has prepared me for college and my future in nursing, while guiding me throughout my high school experience and helping me graduate. Murray High School, as well as my other schools, Rancho Buena Vista, Roosevelt Middle School, and especially Vita with their design lab, have been positive experiences with the Vista Unified School District. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve as a student board member, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate your input and your story. It's very inspirational. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is district announcements, the superintendent's comments.
All right, good evening, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll keep my comments short because it's later in the evening. But I do need to recognize that many teachers, parents, students, and staff members participated in a number of events these past 30 days. The first one was our STEM Fest. We actually brought our STEM Fest back. It was on hiatus as a result of the pandemic. It was fantastic. We had more than 1,000 people attend. And the best part of the STEM Fest was many students engaged in the Humpty Dumpty Challenge, trying to protect an egg for the egg drop. It was wonderful. Next, Arts Under the Stars at the Moonlight. We had 3 days of just amazing performances by more than 1,400 students across our district, kindergarten through 12th grade. 44 different performances. It was fantastic. We loved it. It was a great display of our students' ability. Just this week, the second half of Arts Under the Stars. This is for the visual arts. It was beautiful. It kicked off at City Hall yesterday. It will run for 2 weeks. And that art displays work from all of our middle schools and our high schools across the district. We just had some wonderful demonstrations of ability. You can see the poster on the back wall in the room. This Unified was just recently named one of the best communities for music education in the United States. Actually, specifically, we were one of about 900 that was recognized. That puts us in the top 7% across the United States. And then finally, we just had last Saturday the 8th annual Early Education Fair. It was fantastic, focusing on early education. All of our elementary schools were present. Many of our partners were there, and we had over 1,600 people attend. So I'll stop there because we have lots to do tonight, but there are a lot of great things happening. And of course, we have many great performances happening in the future, graduations and celebrations of achievement for students. I hand it back to our president.
Thank you, Dr. Doyle. Next on the agenda is presentation by community members, public comments. Any member of the audience who wishes to hold and speak to an agenda item or at the appropriate time speak to an item not on the agenda should complete a hold card and present it to the board secretary before item 2A or before the meeting begins in an effort to gain as much public input as possible. Individual speakers will be limited to 2 minutes or less because we have 9 speakers. 2 minutes or less, a total of 29 times 2, 18 minutes.
To clarify, there's 6 speakers for item 6A and an additional 3 for other agenda.
Oh,
items.
6 first. Okay, so that means they get the 3 minutes. 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, the full 3 minutes. For 6A, a total of 20 minutes will be held for public comments under item 6A. The remainder of public comments will be continued after the completion of discussion action items if necessary. All right, so first, and I'm gonna call 3 folks in a row. Please be ready to speak. The first speaker will be Tatiana Galvin. Please come up, and then Chelsea Bunaguidi. If I said that wrong, please correct me. You'll be second. And third will be Rachel Wallen. So please be ready to speak. And good evening, you may begin.
Good evening again, esteemed members of the board. I'd like to finish the statement I began in closed session regarding the leadership failures and abuses of Rafa Olavide and their impact on the multilingual education department. The climate Mr. Olavide has created is one in which polarization and toxicity prevail rather than collaboration and support. After a successful year serving students and families of Vista for 9 years, I resigned due to the explicit retaliation I experienced each time I attempted to shed light on inequities faced by multilingual learners and their educators. I asked that all multilingual students have the same opportunity to prepare for state assessments as their peers. I asked for combined reclassification ceremonies so that students might be celebrated equitably regardless of which school they attend. I challenged directives which defied the direction of the California Department of Education so that our dually identified learners might be considered individually rather than deprived of their legal rights universally. I advocated for the rights of students and their teachers to determine designated supports on state assessments so that the testing environment could mirror their educational environment. Rather than support and empower innovation, Mr. Olavide stifles it with intimidation. In solidarity with the educators of the Multilingual Education Department and with the multilingual families of Vista Unified, I encourage the board to continue to investigate this matter, to speak to other educators within the department about their experiences with Mr. Olavide, to allow the climate survey, which was requested by members of the department and denied, and determine for yourselves whether or not his leadership is a reflection of the values and vision of Vista Unified School District. Thank you again for your audience.
Thank you. Bonaguidi, did I say your name correct?
Chelsea Bonaguidi.
Bonaguidi, thank you. You may begin.
Hi, good evening. I am Chelsea Bonaguidi. I have a middle schooler at Madison Middle School. This past Saturday, I found out my daughter had been posted on an Instagram account for with kids bullying. I found the page bearing the Madison Middle School logo and full of posts of kids like mine being called names and getting roasted by their peers. I sent an email to 12 Vista Unified staff members first thing Monday morning about my daughter and her best friend who were both posted. I included over 10 screenshots and images detailing this, but only received a very underwhelming and generic response from one person, Mr. Walensky. The other mother has not received an email response at all. However, she has been in contact with the school over the last few days because, even though we both sent emails to the school on Monday, by Tuesday, her daughter was hospitalized after another female student grabbed her by the hair and repeatedly slammed her head into the concrete while dozens of students stood by filming and watching. My daughter sits with this girl every single day at school, and had my daughter not have had a dentist appointment that morning, she would have also been in the middle of that tragedy. Unfortunately, as you know, this is not an isolated incident. There are many more like this that can be found publicly on Instagram accounts like MMS Fights 23, where school fights and children getting hurt and bullied are showcased. But even more unfortunate is the fact that this is not the only school in the district with this issue. Last month at Vista Magnet, another female student was also grabbed by her hair and her head and was also slammed on the concrete repeatedly. She was also rushed away to the hospital. There is not a lot of public information about these incidents. In fact, I've also heard from frustrated Vista Unified School teachers who feel like their hands are tied. They are not being informed. They are finding out through social media, just like the kids and the parents. This is bizarre, and I'm asking the Vista Unified School District Board for a true investigation into this. The fights, bullying, and social media harassment are happening daily on school campuses around the district. These things I speak of only scratch the surface. There are some big safety issues and concerns that are being ignored. I've spoken with other parents whose children have been posted, one who messaged me after seeing my post in the VUSD Parent Perspectives and said that her son was all over these accounts, and there were even some pictures of that parent posted. I've spoken with several other parents, VUSD teachers, and staff members who all feel that these safety issues and concerns are not being handled correctly or are being ignored. The school district does not need to wait for California to pass laws restricting and enforcing phone policies at schools, but we do need the VUSD board to approve the guidelines. These ideas are not new. In fact, they are in alignment with your own policies and procedures, which are not being upheld. These views are shared by our district's parents, teachers, and staff members.
Can you please send the rest to us
Yeah, I sent you that email on Monday. I'll follow up though.
Thank you. Rachel Wallen. Followed by Zulema Gomez, followed by Amanda Remen. You may begin, ma'am.
Good evening, board members. I would like to continue on with the discussion about cyberbullying. Since last week, we have conducted limited research and been able to locate almost all of the children's names who have posted on these sites. I have screenshots of the names of the bullying children. These children made fun of other children by calling them homosexuals, whores, and making fun of them based on their disabilities like autism. The first thing that must be done is that each child must be punished in accordance with the current cyberbullying and bullying policy. There is a discrete group of involved children as ringleaders. In addition, I've been able to have many of the posts removed on my own. This tells me that there are many things that can be done if I could do these things in such a short amount of time. In the immediate, the school can formally contact Instagram and file a cease and desist for the use of their logo for hate and bullying. You have the full extent of both your legal team and the Vista Police Department and the sheriffs to root out this small group of active bullies so that there can be safety for all of our children. Finally, I'm reminded that every single one of these pictures was taken at school with a smartphone. These pictures are taken of underage children and were taken without permission. Some, even more recent, were in a bathroom where there is an expectation of privacy. The only way that the children are able to do this is because the district refuses to put in place a policy about smartphones and Wi-Fi during school hours. If the children are not allowed to access their phones, there would be no pictures at bare minimum. Every child that posted on those sites from school should be held accountable for violating your own policies and excluded from having their phone anymore at school for the rest of the year. This is horrific on two fronts. Number one, these inflammatory remarks are things that hit at the heart of growing children and elicit feelings of depression and suicidality. Number two, this doesn't stop on the internet. As we saw with the recent incident at Madison Middle School, the child was bullied first on the internet. Reports were made, nothing was done, and then she was attacked at school. And now she's in the hospital. Most recently, she's back in the hospital. I want to end by reiterating my request to you. One, I respectfully request you punish each and every student who violated the bullying and cyberbullying policy to the fullest extent available to set an example for the rest of the school to see and understand that what they have done, cyberbullying, is intolerable. This is a small group of active bullying children that needs to be addressed. I request that you use every resource at your command, your own IT department, local law enforcement, your own legal advisors to craft cease and desist letters to Instagram and all MMS Kotlaken sites bearing Madison Middle School logos. Finally, I request that you use your district power to enact a district-wide smartphone ban during school hours ahead of the state of California for at least middle school and under. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Zulema Gomez, followed by Amanda Remen, followed by Ian Lopez.
Voy a dar mi mensaje en español. Buenas tardes a la mesa directiva escolar, jóvenes representantes y a nuestra comunidad en la audiencia. Hace un año envié por correo electrónico a este grupo de líderes y al Dr. Doyle una guía de justicia lingüística que creo que ayudaría a nuestro distrito a crear un espacio verdaderamente inclusivo y de apoyo para nuestras más de 7,000 familias en nuestro distrito cuyo idioma preferido no es inglés. En primer lugar, quiero reconocer el gran trabajo que nuestra unidad de servicio de traducción e interpretación hace y lo que nuestros programas de inmersión lingüística dual hacen por nuestras familias en el distrito. Sin embargo, todavía existen brechas que dificultan a los padres hispanohablantes el acceso a la información clave y el desarrollo de la relación y la confianza en nuestro distrito. Un ejemplo es esta reunión mensual de la mesa directiva. Los padres pueden acceder a la interpretación, pero todo lo que está escrito sigue estando en inglés. Cuando los padres que leen español hacen clic en los materiales de la agenda y los archivos adjuntos de esas reuniones, todo sigue apareciendo en inglés. Tendrían que dar el paso adicional de solicitar la traducción de los documentos con antelación. En las reuniones de la comunidad, como la reunión del LCAP en la que yo participé, tenemos representantes del distrito haciendo presentaciones para grupos de habla hispana como DLAC o ELAC, donde hay interpretación de calidad en ese espacio, pero todas las presentaciones visuales siguen siendo en inglés. porque los oradores hablan inglés. Imagínate si tú estás en una reunión en la que las diapositivas están en un idioma que no entiendes y la información trata de cambios de presupuesto que afectan el futuro de tu hijo. ¿Cómo te sentirías? Un método de justicia lingüística haría que un padre hispanohablante escuchara su idioma y pudiera ver y leer su idioma en los materiales que se facilitan. El enfoque de justicia lingüística garantiza que los padres tuvieran una copia imprimida de las diapositivas en español o que en una de las pantallas también se muestran las diapositivas en español. En general, el enfoque de justicia lingüística también tendría en cuenta el contenido de los medios sociales y los videos creados por el distrito que se hacen en español y no solo añadiendo subtítulos en español. En un distrito como este en USD, con un gran porcentaje de familias que necesitan acceso al idioma, necesitamos construir e implementar una cultura y práctica de justicia lingüística. Esto puede significar que tenemos que construir un comité para auditar realmente nuestras prácticas de acceso al lenguaje en el distrito, pero también puede significar que tenemos que ampliar nuestra unidad de servicios de traducción e interpretación de alguna manera. Si estamos comprometidos a la equidad y a la eliminación de la supremacía blanca en nuestras prácticas como distrito, tenemos que dejar de marginar a nuestras comunidades hispanas y latinas en Vista Unified y cerrar la brecha lingüística para el beneficio de nuestros niños. Gracias por su tiempo.
Gracias. Would you please, send that to the board in English as well? So that the other trustees can understand it, but point well taken. Before you speak, Ms. Remen, student board members, you've been here since 6:30. You are dismissed, but feel free to stay if you would like to participate in the discussions, but you've been here for quite some time, so feel free to leave whenever you guys are ready to leave. All right, thank you, Ms. Remen. All right, Ms. Remen, thank you
yes,
for
sorry.
waiting. Let's begin.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Hello, board. Thank you so much. My name is Amanda Remen, parent in the district. I'm gonna go straight to it. I'm actually altering it based on what I just heard, because being part of Rancho Minerva and having Christina DeSanto as a principal was an amazing experience. And she had a cell phone rule. They had to be turned off, put in your backpack, and we saw such a huge change in the culture at our school. We just had a PBIS meeting where it was actually mentioned of, oh my gosh, we are on campus, no one's on their phones, they're all talking to each other. It made huge impact on how any bullying and things going on our site. So I wanted to put that out there. Now I'm going to address an issue that happened this week with my daughter. So my daughter is part of AMPM at Rancho Minerva. One of the biggest highlights of her week is Monday having her comic book club that Ish Gavin ran at the AMPM program. She was there on Monday and I get a call, please come pick me up. I'm very upset. And I go, what's going on? You have comic book club. And she goes, they canceled it. She's like, I don't want to be at AMPM anymore. Please come and get me. Sorry, I'm being emotional. Being a kid with tons of anxiety and uncertainty at the school she's at, because of consolidation, it has caused a lot for her of uncertainty and change. And with someone battling with strong anxiety, it affects her. So I contact Ish. I say, what happened? We thought this was going to be towards the end of the year. And she was really excited. And it was the highlight of going to school. She said, he let me know, he's like, I don't know. I got a text that they are no longer doing the middle school. I'm still doing it at the elementary, but they canceled all my middle school. I'm like, do you know why? Is there any information you can give me? He's like, I know as much as I just told you. And so I contact Sherry, who's in charge of AMPM for the site there. She gives me a long list of, oh, his contract hours are up. We have to get it approved so that he can get more hours. He can't be on a site because that's up, which I don't understand if he's still able to do it at an elementary site. I just feel the uncertainty that it does with these kids when they look forward and have something that they connect with that makes them want to go to school. it's understand if that program was gonna end, then give that expectation, but to just rip it out when they think they're gonna have it there, it messes with our students, and some of these programs are why they love going to school, and it makes a difference on how they are at school. And the way we treat our employees also. I had a chance to reach out to him again and talk to him on it, and he let me know he's had a lot of struggles with getting paid regularly.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond. You can send the rest to the board. And last is Ian Lopez. You may begin, sir.
Good evening. Today I stand before you with a heavy heart to address a pressing issue that has plagued our school community, cyberbullying and violence. In recent times, we witnessed the devastating impact of these behaviors on our middle school campuses. Whether it's through hurtful messages sent online or physical altercations, the consequences are real and deeply concerning. Cyberbullying transcends the traditional boundaries of the schoolyard. It follows our students home, invading their safe spaces and inflicting emotional wounds that can last a lifetime. We cannot turn a blind eye to the suffering of our peers. Every derogatory comment, every threatening message chips away at the fabric of our school's unity and safety. Violence, both physical and verbal, has no place in our educational environment. It undermines our district values: respect, trust, collaboration, equity, and kindness. We cannot allow fear and intimidation to dictate the atmosphere of our own campus. Each and every one of us has the right to feel safe and valued in our school community. But we are not powerless in the face of these challenges. As a district, as educators, as myself, I run one of our specialty programs for our district, the autism program. As parents and as stakeholders, we must come together to take action. We must foster a culture of kindness and compassion where every individual is treated with dignity and respect. We must educate ourselves and our students about the consequences of cyberbullying and violence, both legally and emotionally. We must provide support and resources for those who have been affected and empower them to seek help without fear of retaliation. It is not enough to simply condemn these behaviors. We must actively work to prevent them. We must encourage open dialogue and create channels for reporting incidences of bullying and violence. We must implement comprehensive school policies and procedures that address these issues head on, such as abolishing cell phones and enforcing a dress code policy. And above all, we must lead by example, demonstrating the values of empathy, integrity, and inclusivity in everything we do. Together, we can build a safer, more inclusive school community, one where every student feels supported, valued, and empowered to succeed. Let us stand united against cyberbullying and violence, and let our actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Final question for Mr. Lopez. What site are you on?
I'm at Madison.
Next on the agenda is 7A Vista Teachers Association. You'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, good evening, Board Superintendent, Dr. Doyle. I was gonna say the student board members, but they're already gone, so cabinet and the community. You heard the majority of my speech at closed session, and you've seen that Vista teachers are organizing, and we're saying that we need to do something with the salary negotiations. So I'm just gonna skip to some highlights, because there's something else I wanna say about safety. So Ramona, their highest salary on the salary scale is $118,587, and that's at year 30. Escondido Elementary, their highest salary is $122,069, and that is at 25 years of service. Escondido Union High School is $225,316 at 25 years of service. Their salary scale goes to 30 years, and they go to something about $130,000. San Marcos, their highest salary is $123,528, and that is year 27. Oceanside, their highest on their baseline salary scale is $121,908 at year 22. Carlsbad this year is $124,990. At next year, it'll be $130,671, and that is year 27. Vista is at $115,773 at year 25, and with a 3.4 salary increase, that would put us at about $119,709, and that is as year 25. Dr. Doyle, you and I have discussed that we have a common goal of making Vista into the top 5 districts of pay. On this list of 7 districts, we are currently at the bottom with the 3.4 increase to salary, that would just put us second to last. When our benefits are put into the mix, because we've all established we are the worst, then that's more money coming out of our pockets on top of all the supplies that we buy for our classroom. When I was in the classroom, I would spend an average of $1,000 a year. Sometimes for science, one project, $80 out of my pocket to do the science for our students. So they got the education they deserved. We understand that the budget for next year is not great. However, our members want to be able to afford to live in the community that we serve, and to serve the students that we love. Now on safety, and I've spoken about this before, it is the PE teachers that work at the schools with pools. Those teachers have to be lifeguards and teach swimming at the same time. My son is a lifeguard. He worked at the Wave. You don't teach and lifeguard at the same time. They have up to 38, maybe 58 kids that they're supervising in the pool. The fastest death through drowning has been less than 30 seconds. I'm hearing our community talk about students being in danger. I hear us say we put students first. That will be the worst thing that could happen if a kid dies in the pool and it was something we could have prevented. So I urge you all to not say, oh, we don't need a lifeguard because legally we don't need one, but think about the safety of those kids in the pools, especially in Vista Magnet, where there are so many kids that do not have access to water, where kids could learn how to swim in 6th grade, but because teachers are having to swim or teach swim and lifeguard at the same time, in 8th grade, those kids, that's when they start to learn to swim. So please look into that and try to fix that problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is PSBA. Followed by District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC. You may begin, Ms. Ramos, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, superintendent, cabinet members, and CSEA brothers, sisters, and siblings of Vista Unified. In CSEA's last month report, we focus on the topic of LCAP, specifically asking for the board's support to ensure that funds are allocated for professional development and training for classified employees targeted to their specific roles. It is important because investing in training and professional development creates trust. Employees feel valued, and we're happy to come to work. Our members are preparing for what's coming in the next fiscal year in regards to salary increases. So we need to start now collaborating together to think creatively about how to promote retention of highly qualified classified employees. We highlighted a few job classifications and job families last month, and I promised that I would continue tonight. So that's what I'm going to do, starting with custodial services. Custodial services help foster a good learning environment because students feel better and learn more in clean surroundings. Studies have shown that students score higher on standardized tests and feel more motivated to learn when classrooms are clean, comfortable, and well-equipped. Studies have also shown that schools in despair and those that have fewer custodial workers per square foot have higher absentee and dropout rates. Library services. Properly staffed and equipped school libraries have a strong and positive impact on student academic achievement. In school libraries, students learn the essential skills of inquiry, critical thinking, and digital citizenship and technology. School libraries foster a love of reading and the ability to find accurate and reliable information to solve problems and make decisions. Studies have shown that students who are highly engaged readers have higher average reading scores regardless of their parents' background. Campus security. All public school students and staff have inalienable rights to attend safe, secure, and peaceful schools. Campus security is instrumental in education, and schools must be safe and welcoming. Teaching and learning cannot take place without the physical and mental well-being of students. Students have shown that school safety is an important factor in academic success. Students who feel safe at school have higher GPAs and are more likely to go to college. Clerical, secretarial, attendance services. Students simply will not be in class if not for the classified staff performing clerical, secretarial, and attendance services. These employees are the keepers of students' permanent records. The clerical staff is the link between parents and schools. They greet parents who visit the school, answer phones, provide parents with essential information, and process student paperwork. Besides that, Spanish-speaking clerical staff is instrumental to keeping non-English parents informed by performing those same services in the parents' native language. Since classified employees are the attendance record keepers, they are the ones who are essential in tracking truancies, excessive absenteeism, and other problems related to attendance that can pose problems for the student, school, and community. Fiscal services. The Fiscal Services Department maintains the district's financial well-being by ensuring the effective and appropriate use of resources and ensures district funds and use in accordance with statute. Fiscal monitoring is necessary to establish and maintain high-quality programs for all students. The school district cannot operate unless its funds are properly budgeted and its expenses and revenues are properly monitored and reported. In addition, school districts must adopt their budget each year and are required to certify their financial condition twice a year, and fiscal services employees are crucial to ensuring the school district meets its budgeting and reporting obligations as required by law. So due to time, I will stop there because guess what? There's more of us. So I'm going to come back next month to share more of classified employees, positions, job classifications and families. But lastly, I do want to recognize that later tonight, school board members, you're going to have the opportunity to approve our classified or CSEA reopener contract. The bargaining team has worked so hard in advocating for our classified employees. So we need your support to approve this contract tonight.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Ramos.
you.
Next is DLAC. 7C. Good evening. Buenas tardes o noches. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches, estimados miembros de la mesa directiva. La actualización de DILAC para la mesa directiva. DILAC realizó una reunión oficial el lunes 25 de marzo y en esta reunión se completaron 2 tareas. La tarea número 2, que es el reporte de necesidades escolares por parte de representantes de ILAC. Y la tarea número 7, que es la revisión y retroalimentación de LCAP. Y pues no tuvimos quórum, ya que solamente asistieron 11 representantes de las 21 escuelas del distrito escolar.
Good evening, esteemed board members. This is the DLAC update for the school board. DLAC conducted an official meeting on Monday, March 25th. In this meeting, we completed 2 tasks. Task number 2 was the needs assessment reports from all the schools by the ELAC representatives. Task number 7 was the LCAP review and feedback. Unfortunately, quorum was not met since only 11 out of the 24 schools were represented.
Con respecto a estas tareas, DILA quisiera respetuosamente recomendar, punto número 1, que el puesto de enlace comunitario debe mantenerse en el presupuesto para el próximo ciclo escolar y para los años futuros. El punto número 2, que se invite y se anime a los directores, subdirectores y los profesores de recursos de ELD a que asistan a las juntas de DILAC. Y el punto número 3, que se le brinde a DILAC más información del presupuesto LCAP y más información en los términos utilizados en las presentaciones como título 1, título 3, entre otros, para poder comprender mejor la información que se nos brinda.
Based on these tasks, DLAC would like to respectfully recommend point number 1, that the community liaison position must be maintained in the budget for next year and for future years. Point number 2, that principals, assistant principals, and ELD resource teachers be invited and encouraged to attend DLAC meetings. And point number 3, DLAC be provided with more information regarding the LCAP budget
and the terms used in that presentation, such as Title I and Title III, so that we can better understand the information that is given to us.
Nuestra próxima junta oficial de DILAC se llevará a cabo el lunes 22 de abril a las 6 de la tarde en el BIC. Y las tareas para esta junta se incluirá la tarea número 2, que son las presentaciones de representantes escolares sobre la evaluación de las necesidades de cada escuela. Y la tarea número 7, que será nuevamente la revisión de LCAP.
The next official DLAC meeting will be held on Monday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Vista Innovation Center. The task for this meeting will include task number 2, and that is presentations by school representatives regarding their needs assessment. And task number 7, again, to have the LCAP review.
Muchas
Thank you.
gracias, señora Cruz. All right, next on the, yes.
Is there a reason why we couldn't have had Lena's letter translated so you could understand what she was saying?
A reason from who? From me?
No, well, for why,
You mean interpretation?
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
But
like I'm just wondering why we didn't do that, so we could all understand what was said.
we just didn't know that she wanted interpretation. I could have brought someone up, but that's what she asked for.
It's not that she wanted it, it's because we could understand what she was saying, so we give that, so I just think maybe that should have been given to us.
We can do that in the future. We just, what normally happens is people tell us when they need translation, and we have someone ready to do it.
I think that was all.
Is that a clarifying question? Is that a question on the gold card? Do they need translation or interpretation?
Yeah.
It's not, but I think it's different when you need translation versus when you want to speak. I know for myself, I've gone to the Vista City Council and I've spoken in Spanish. And then Mayor Ritter was like, no, only if you need it, if you don't know the language. So I don't know. And so we can
We'd be
discuss
more
it.
than happy to
We
return and
discuss
do it one more time if that's what you would like.
Well, we do it the opposite way.
Yes, we do.
So I think I have the right to know what was said.
You absolutely have the right, and we can
And
do
it shouldn't
that.
have to be a discussion.
I just wasn't prepared for Rosie. I apologize. We can bring our interpreter forward if you'd like that.
I will ask Zulema if he could maybe talk with me and let me know what your letter said.
I asked her to send her.
We're gonna
an
give it to
email.
everyone in English and Spanish.
I know you did,
Mhm.
and that's what I'll do, but I am still questioning the fact that we didn't offer that to
Right, next on the agenda is 8A board member reports. We'll start off, well, actually, I'm not gonna share in the interest of time.
I was
Trustee
gonna
Kelly?
suggest the same thing, and, you know,
I do the same thing.
yeah, 2 thumbs up for Arts Under the Stars and all our student performers and all the hours that went in from our teachers and parents and.
So I'd like to give 2 thumbs up to our HOSA group that went and represented our district up in LA.
All right, next on the agenda is 9 staff committee reports to board. No, we already did that. Hold on. So next 9B, potential bond measure planning.
Let me get this ready. So the board has had a number of conversations over the months about potential bond measure. We have been working behind the scenes to prepare all the necessary paperwork. The most pressing requirement is for us to submit that paperwork to the San Diego Taxpayers Association. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide you background and then get official feedback so we can finalize that language. So that's the purpose of it. So there's a number of language items that our legal counsel, Janet, will be going over with you, and Dr. Loescher. So Dr. Loescher, take it away.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doran.
Just very quickly, point of clarification. I thought we were doing a study to see if it was even feasible.
That's part of it. In order for us to finalize that study, we need feedback on language, and that's the purpose of the meeting tonight, is to get feedback on language, so we can finalize that.
But then we're voting on the budget. We're voting to allocate $100,000 towards this, right? Later on.
That was last meeting. wasn't
No,
it?
that's this meeting,
This-
the mailers.
This meeting later. in it. That's the next one.
I think it's kind of premature. If we don't know what that study says, I don't think we should be
we can't submit that study until we get feedback on language. That's why this is first. And then if you approve, the second survey, then we can finalize the language.
I am utterly confused. We
Okay.
approved $25,000 for the survey, for the study. And now before we can get the results of that study, we have to approve $100,000?
Yeah, so that, we can talk about it, that agenda item, but I don't think I can talk about that right now, because we're not at that agenda item, and we can provide that clarification to you.
Okay.
You did approve dollars for aspects of the survey, but there's additional items, and we can go over that during that action item.
Okay. All right.
But we can't talk about that on this action item.
All right.
This isn't even an action item, this is just a report.
Right.
And the purpose of this report is the language, to go over, get feedback and consensus from the board on what type of language you would like us to finalize in order for us to do those items that would come up later. Dr. Lotion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doyle, President Alvarado, Vice President Kelly, members, board trustees. Specifically, the purpose of this item is to reach consensus because as part of exploring a potential bond member, we do need to go through a process of submitting to the San Diego Taxpayers Association. That submission is due before your next board meeting. So we will need to come to some degree of consensus so we can craft enough language to submit for those items. Now, the language that you craft would be draft language. It's not passed until the summer. So there are room for revisions on all of those items based upon future studies or other feedback that occur. But again, the purpose here is to walk you through the steps of what is required for the San Diego Taxpayers Association, step by step. There are some items in here that do require for you to engage in dialogue and to come to consensus because we do need some direction on there. So that way we can move forward with that submission. There is a separate item later in the board meeting regarding the study, and we can discuss those items later there. For those of you that do not know, Janet is our bond counsel. She has been counseling us throughout this process. She is an expert in this field, and she is here to walk you through some process steps. And what we have tried to do in this presentation is to list out on each slide what we're talking about, but also you will note in your material, there is the actual project list with the page numbers on there. So we are cross-referencing in the presentation, not to the page numbers on your board pack, but to the page number that is listed within the material specific to the project list. So that will be in red, the items that you're seeing. So Janet, I'll have you walk them through, please, the process steps of all of the process, the ballot question, the full ballot text, what's involved there, what's in the bond project list. And then Dr. Doyle and I will preference things on the discussion points for consideration. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. Nice to see you all. So what we've got in front of us for tonight is really just orienting you towards a draft. We've actually created a draft ballot measure resolution and ballot measure text for your consideration. The goal is to hear back from you if you have any comments or questions as we get ready to submit a package to the San Diego County Taxpayers Association. It was mentioned, we'll come back to you for actual final approval in July. So when we put a ballot measure on the ballot, we do it via resolution. And then there are a number of components that have to be submitted at the time you call the election to the registrar of voters. We have to be fully ready to go with that material. So one of the key items is what we call the ballot label, the 75-word question. You hear it talked about in different ways. In your resolution draft, which hopefully you have, that's page A1. And a 75-word question has to include a variety of items. We've listed them there on the slide. It becomes a mouthful because of the requirements for how much we've put in that question to inform voters. It is the one place that we know that every voter will see, because that is literally the question where they check the yes or no. So we have provided, what you'll see in your draft materials on page A1 is a draft ballot question. It is assuming a $364 million measure. But the reason it's shown in brackets at the moment is that we're looking to test and do a tracking survey that might play with some of those amounts, both tax rates and total principal amount. So for now, that is the sort of assumption on which the material is premised, but that may shift over time. So just might pause there for any comments or questions about the ballot label or anything that you see in the ballot label. Okay, all right. Next up is what we would call the full ballot text. That is Exhibit B to your resolution, pages B1 through B7. It's rather lengthy. It is actually your full ballot measure. It will be printed in the ballot pamphlet that goes home to voters. That's the extended material that everyone, we hope, reads because it has a lot of detail in it, including various accountability measures. But very key is that bond project list. Now, we were here, I think, in February, presenting you just an excerpt, which was the focus on specific projects. That is now, you can kind of see the surrounding context. We took some of your feedback, we've embedded that draft bond project list right into the full ballot text for your consideration. And just real quickly, I think if we go to the next slide, just talking a little bit about what a bond project list is and honing on pages B3 to B6, you'll see everything's kind of organized in some tables with categories. The bond project list is the list of specific school facility projects to be funded. Has to be specific enough to allow for meaningful approval and oversight by your oversight committee, by your public. But listing them according to particular types is allowable, such as, and this came literally out of a case, repair or replacement of leaky roofs. That is kind of an example of a project that meets sort of the legal requirements for specificity. It doesn't have to be a site-specific list, and we have presented it in a category, on a category basis, rather than on a site-specific basis. And part of that reasoning is that a court will hold you to, if you limit yourself as to where a project will happen, you will be held to that limiting language. And we've spent a lot of time among our working group talking about how to strike that right balance between making sure people know where projects could happen, but also giving ourselves some room for movement there over time. So I think here is where, we're going to pause and talk about some specific feedback we need from you all on the bond project list.
Thank you very much, Tanda. At this moment, I wanted to send a special thanks to President Alvarado and Trustee Member Vargas for an extended amount of time. As we know, our board's actively involved in a number of committee groups that get together, whether it be facilities or looking at this. And these two members have spent a number of hours with us as we looked at these options. At this juncture, there are some things where we require board consensus to proceed, so that way we are acting with direction from the board. And really, the considerations revolve around two things that are related to each other in here. They're not seemingly directly related, but they are. The first is a consideration around what should we include in this measure language for staff housing. Staff housing is known by a number of items. The verbiage that we have selected for staff housing seems to be the clearest and the one that's being used. We've also called it in these meetings workforce housing. So just for clarification on there. So from recent workshops that we've had on this topics, we have explored with you from the city strategies that are available for staff housing. What we are suggesting is we need to have consensus from the board on whether staff housing will be brought up in this bond measure. We're not asking for consensus around staff housing. That's a different question altogether. Now, of course, there's various funding strategies, which is an additional consideration here around staff housing. We found many districts have used bond measures to acquire land for staff housing, which is not something that Vista Unified currently is seeking, because we have some land available out there on various items and for our consideration. So the other consideration is, again, do you put that project in the project list or in the ballot text? In the ballot text in 75 words, very upfront about what we're doing with staff housing, or would it reside in the project list, or neither? From there is another consideration, which is what is the scope of that language? Would it be a narrow scope? And we're going to give you an example, or a broader scope of language. And then the final consideration on here is something which is, if you choose to adopt staff housing in the language or not to, that may pertain to a separate item, which is, do we choose to have a separate resolution? And the separate resolution would be for a 60-day reimbursement clause. What does that mean? That we could go back in time after a potential bond may pass, we could fund projects that began 60 days in advance of that. So that way, that might free up money in a potential bond measure that could then be allocated towards staff housing in a different way. So those are sort of the things before us. So the first decision point for discussion would be, do we include staff housing in this submission? Yes or no? If the answer to that is yes, then it would be, what is the scope of language around staff housing to be included? And once that's resolved, then a third question on the table would then become, would we want a separate resolution for a 60-day reimbursement clause? So those are the three items for discussion that I would turn back over to you, Mr. Superintendent, to guide us through.
So in working with our two board members, these are two examples, or not the only examples, but two examples. If the board chooses to use staff housing in the language that you could consider. So I think now is the time, at least for the board, to begin a conversation. Ultimately, tonight, we just need consensus from you. This isn't a voting item, it's just consensus so we can move forward with the language. Keep in mind that the official bond language wouldn't be approved until July, but in order for us to submit it to the Taxpayers Association, we would want it to be fairly accurate. So I'm gonna hand it back to the board president, so you guys can have a conversation. Two things. One, should we include the terminology of staff housing? And if so, what type of language should we use?
All right, who would like to start? Anybody on discussion, comments?
And not for putting it on the ballot, because I think we'll lose it.
Yeah, I'm in support of it. It's easier to remove it in July, but it's like, to take it out and then bring it back in July. So let's, we're sending this to the Taxpayers Association, rather have that language in there so that it's crystal clear, if we take it off, fine. We're also gonna be doing polling, assuming the contract has already been approved. And so that'll get us a good assessment. But I do think, we need to limit the scope with, it shouldn't be 80% or 90% of the bond does pass of like bad money to be used for staff housing. And so we can find, some language to limit, whether that be like, it's an amount or if it's like, no more than X, Y, Z. With, we're seeing, districts do workforce housing, and the Unified just have an article about that. Chula Vista's doing it through their bond, and so with the, we hear from staff members that cost of living, San Diego is one of the most expensive cities to live in. We heard about it today, we heard about it last month, we heard about it a few months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago. And so with, what can we do to, utilize our own resources? When the repertoire from the United Nations came to San Diego a couple months ago, he said, the number one thing that we can do is build on public land. Vista, has public land, and so let's take advantage of this opportunity of polling and, with the messaging works for the school district.
Trustee Morocco?
I don't think we have enough information to make a decision with it. The preliminary polling that we did showed that if we put this on the ballot, it was not very popular with voters. However, the new polling might show something else. So I kind of feel like I don't have enough information to make a decision.
And just to clarify, this is not for the ballot. It's not, the ballot can be changed before July, I believe. This is for the Taxpayer Association to endorse or not. So it can still be modified one way or the other, all the way until July.
Still don't have enough information. I feel like I don't have enough information to make a decision.
Trustee Kelly?
I concur with trustee Vargas and being upfront in the ballot language about the intent of potentially spending this money on staff housing. The language that's on the screen where I'm confused, is that what you're proposing putting into the 75 word exhibit A, page A1, or that's
Go ahead, Janet.
what would be the wording that would go in that?
Right. So we left, it's literally a blank line in your draft under category D in the bond project list.
B6?
On page B6.
Okay.
And we would add a line item. And so the limited scope is really focused on sort of planning and evaluating feasibility or even to consider developing it. Broader scope is to actually maybe allocate dollars to construction of that project.
So then I have a new question, or comment, that exhibit A, the page A1 language, ballot label does not say anything about staff housing. And I think, to your point, that's what voters, that's the one thing that they will see in their ballot language. Is there a reason not to include it in this 75 words?
Oh, well, from a legal perspective, I'm sort of neutral on the issue. From the way that I've heard it talked about, it's not likely to be a large portion of this measure. And when we think about just the few words we have to try to convey to voters sort of the bulk or the majority of what we want to try to do, it's a lot of words to allocate to something that might be a rather minor portion of the measure. There's probably political wisdom, and that would be a Jared, question, or maybe you all have a sense of how big to profile that aspect of this measure.
Yeah, my question would be the flip, like, will it look like a bait and switch if we don't include it here? And always know that we have the intent of pursuing it. I mean, if it's, I think to your point, legally, we would be covered because it would be in the more substantial, we hope the voters read all their election materials. But that was one question I was curious about. I'm in favor of being as transparent as possible about our intent of how bond funds would be spent.
Yeah, so we asked Jared's our strategist, right, on this. You've met him, he's been at other meetings, and his recommendation was not to put it in the 75 word, but rather to put it within the dialogue of it, where it actually bullets out the various projects that we're proposing. And those would be 2 of the mini bullets of the projects that we would address. That's his recommendation. If we were to use it, not put it at the top.
Trustee Smithfield?
I thought, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we don't have to put this under the bond. And we have other funds that we can use to go in this direction.
To build staff housing?
Yeah.
That would be an accurate statement.
So it doesn't have to be part of the bond.
Correct. And that was the purpose of the workshop that we
Yeah,
had?
no, I totally understand it. I've been taught very well by these great people over here.
But let me follow up on that. I just want to make sure we're clear on this. The purpose for this conversation tonight is that we need to make sure that when we move forward with this language, we're representing the will of the board and not us and the strategist. That's why I know it's an awkward discussion, but it needs to happen here. And I wanted to clarify one more thing that's important for Ms. Morocco to understand, because you brought up a very important point. We need to move forward with 3 key elements of a potential bond. And remember, the bond language wouldn't be approved by this board until July. But there are preliminary steps that we need to take in order for the district to be positioned to follow through on a bond, should the district choose to follow through on it. One of them is the Taxpayers Association, but there are 2 other elements. So one element is the language that's draft language, underscore draft, so that the Taxpayers Association can make a determination whether or not they would like to endorse a potential bond for Vista or not. That's step 1, very important step. And that's happening the first week in May. It's due. The second important step is we do have a second survey. You referenced that. And we'll pull the other items so I can clarify the topic of the other item in a little while. But we need language on that too. We need to know whether we're going to continue with including language about potential staff housing, for which the first survey included back in September, or not. And then the third item is the mailer. We have a set of mailers that will be going out potentially if the board should approve that item. And that item has language. So we just have to make sure that we're conveying the will of the board when we will prepare these preliminary items. That's the purpose of this conversation tonight.
So I have a question then. What happens if the Taxpayers Association does not endorse it?
Nothing, we can move forward. Many bonds have passed without an endorsement from the Taxpayers Association.
Yeah, I think for me, I wouldn't, considering this is just for the Taxpayers Association and it could be changed or modified after we get more information. I'm leaning on including it. And then if after the surveys, it polls badly, or perhaps if the Taxpayers Association, well, let me ask you this, if they say no, and then we say like, the board might deliberate and think like, we really need this, could we remove the workforce housing clauses and then resubmit for approval, or is it just a one-shot deal with the Taxpayers Association?
Yeah, as they stand right now, it is a one submission without a resubmission process. But everything that we submit to the Taxpayers Association, can be changed in one direction without them, because there's two aspects. Could you resubmit? There is not a resubmission process. The second is the reverse of that. Can the Taxpayers Association endorse you and then drop your endorsement? And the answer to that is they can't. So they can endorse and then later. So typically a strategy that is discussed is you start with a high bar and move the bar lower. You don't start at a low bar and move the bar higher. Let me give you an example, not from staff housing. We've listed here an amount of over $350 million. Well, we may find based upon polling that the board chooses to reduce that number. Reducing that number and reducing the score typically does not result in the San Diego Taxpayers Association's endorsements changing. However, telling them that you would go for $200 million and then getting their endorsement and then announcing you're doing 350 would have a significant impact. And that may in fact have them completely pull things back. So it is as a strategy for submission, better to start at a higher bar and work your way lower, because then that doesn't have them come back and say you significantly changed the language.
There's one other part that's, I think, really new, it's very nuanced, but there's one other part, Dr. Loshi, you could explain to them, and that is including staff housing doesn't necessarily mean that the Taxpayers Association will not endorse it. So explain that part.
Yeah, so I did confer with the San Diego Taxpayers Association, and I'm appreciative of Haney Hong and everybody that spoke to me there. They do not at this time have an official policy statement regarding staff housing. They are also in the process of looking at the many interpretations at this time of the various laws around it and trying to grapple with that topic. So they did not have a firm position on that, particularly when it came to things like acquiring land or developing plans for staff housing. So that was not something that they had any comment on or could give feedback on before our submission. So they had no way, one way or the other.
Did San Diego Unified on this last bond that they submitted, the one I think that resulted in work, did their workforce housing that they are beginning, is that part of a bond or was that funded in different ways?
So San Diego Unified recently, as last night, announced plans for moving forward. So
That was the information I sent all of you.
So this information we'll review again in the Friday letter, but they're looking at a variety of strategies, and their primary use of bond funds, as I understood it, was for the acquisition of land and development partnerships versus outright different building strategies.
But we have land, so we're
Correct.
not acquiring land.
There is no plan. There is, what we can say for certain is within the long range facility master plan, we've identified an excess of land that the district has available for developing and considering in different ways. And we have the advice from the Asset Management Advisory Committee that came to the board, which identified that there was a variety of things that can be considered, including staff housing, but also on that list, primarily were items such as joint use agreements, particularly in residential neighborhoods like Beaumont.
All right, so, further discussion, or should we take a 5-minute break, for the bathroom? Or do you want to?
2 minutes, I'll be right back.
2 minutes,
You don't
okay.
have to stop your discussion.
Down, one, two, hold.
Does any, so again, like, I do want it as a possibility with limited scope.
I mean, here's the other thing that I'm thinking about. If we done it with other projects, CTE building, we went to the state, got a grant from the state, and, we were able to do that. Other sources of funding, and so when I think about this, and if it is included and it does pass, then we have the opportunity to go and get matching funds. We have opportunities to work with the city, the county. Although the state budget is in the red, the one thing that they are investing is housing, because housing is a crisis all across the state. And so I don't see the state, governor, the mayors, the city councils backing off on this. And so I think it's, gonna be a good opportunity, just like community schools, we directed the superintendent to go for those grants, and we were one of the first to apply. Now we're benefiting from being proactive rather than waiting for them to happen.
So again, just to reiterate, what's on the table right now for discussion, and again, we just need consensus, you're not voting, is really two questions. The first one is, should we even include language around staff housing? Question number one. If the answer is, if there's
For the
consensus that
Vista
yes.
tax, for the taxpayers association.
Correct, for the draft language, that's the best way to say it, for the draft language. If the answer is yes, then the second question is, what type of language do you want it to be? Limited in scope, or do you want it to be broader in scope?
So we're just gonna start going, yes, unless
Question
there's
more.
more
Yeah, question
clarifying
one.
questions.
And is this for like the whole bond or is this for like specific staff housing? Just to clarify.
This would be for the language related to staff housing.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be this language, this is just the language that Janet gave us for now as a point of departure.
Should we just go around and everybody,
I think you start question by question. Let's
Yeah.
start with question number one first.
Should it be included
Yes.
in the draft language for the taxpayers association?
I would say yes for me.
Okay, so trustee Morocco,
I don't know. I still don't feel like I have enough information to make a decision.
trustee Vargas, yes. Trustee Smith, though you said earlier no, but you still no?
Yeah, I would be leaning towards that myself, but if I had to propose a question.
And I think I'd be a yes. Knowing that if feedback is negative from the polling, that it would not be something that I would be in favor of in July when we finalize the language for the ballot.
So good. And we anticipate bringing that information back to you, the polling information that's gonna come up later in the agenda tonight. Hopefully, if you're comfortable, at the June sixth special board meeting, we've talked with Jared and the team, I think it's Tim and his team, can bring that language, that the results of that polling back to you on the sixth.
And then question number two, limited scope or broader scope? So, let's start with, would you like to,
I'll go last this time.
you'll go last. So, those of you who voted no, would you like to chime in on limited scope or broader scope? Or
Because
just,
that's both for the building, that's pretty well on their thing, right?
It's right here on the screen, so,
Right, but that to go to the taxpayers,
correct.
I said no, so I wouldn't.
okay. So trustee Vargas, just, you said limited scope, have you changed your mind or are you still limited?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the key differences, like one's like to value the feasibility, the second one's to develop, so like one's more affirmative.
So one simply says that you would be able to access bond funds for the purpose of developing plans and feasibility. The second one says not only could you use the bond funds for planning and feasibility, you could use it for constructing.
That's the difference.
Got it. With that, then I'd be leaning over broader scope.
I'm torn between the two. I think broader is more accurately describing our intent. So I'd want us to be as clear and transparent as possible.
Mhm. The intent. For me, I want the limited because I really don't want the bulk of the housing being used like for the physical construction. I would like to use our resources from the state, the county. I don't know if developers ever come in and do it, there's kind of profit making. Can you tell me more about that?
So the Sandy Unified one is a great example.
Right.
Okay,
So in our recent workshop around this, again, to make sure that we're within Brown Act compliance, I'm gonna frame it around these two issues.
okay,
So basically, President Alvarado, what you presented is an accurate scope. For example, under limited scope language, you could use the money in the planning and developing if you brought in a third-party partner, which is a common strategy. This might be a nonprofit organization, the city or state agency or others. They would then be paying to literally construct that item. The development of the item would be the bond funds could be used for feasibility studies, for testing of the grounds, for looking for developing some of the planning around architecture to just explore what that would be in order to attract those agencies to actually put their dollars in order to construct.
Yeah.
The second language item would be if we do not have any of those agencies available and the school district itself would be the lead builder and constructor of those items. So we find that most school districts that we were taking a look at do in fact tend to use their bond funds towards either land, feasibility studies, development plans to attract people in. And that is the San Diego Unified article as presented recently about that item.
And not to construct.
Yeah, they were not using bond funds for that.
Okay, may I please change my answer to the limited scope language, because based on what has been shared in the last couple of minutes, I think that's more accurate.
Yeah, I think that I would want, you know, a very, the most of the bond, if it were to pass in October, to go to our infrastructure here with our school site. So I'm on the limited scope because we have the land.
So,
I don't have consensus yet, so we need three.
Sabrina, could you consider limited scope language?
Okay.
So we'll develop that, right? So we will be developing, we will be moving forward with the survey with the language of work of staff housing, and we will apply through Janet this limited scope approach, and you'll get an example of that sometime next week, likely in the Friday letter, not tomorrow, but in a week from now. And then
We do have we do have a third question on the table,
Yep.
Mr. Superintendent, we require direction on, which is, given the nature of the limited scope of the language, would the board want us to propose a 60-day reimbursement resolution? This may allow for us to take certain projects and reimburse them out of a potential bond, which would then potentially free additional funds that could be applied toward staff housing in some way. This might come into play under the scenario proposed by Trustee Vargas, where there is state matching funds or other items, and you need to demonstrate other funds.
I would be in favor of that. Is it a clause? Is that the legal?
It's a resolution.
We would add it actually to your ballot measure resolution to establish that intention of the board to be able to access bond funds for that.
I would also.
Okay.
Others?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of it.
Of being able to say then we can use other funds. Yes. I don't think this should be connected to our bond language. So if it's gonna be connected to the bond language, my answer is no.
Okay,
And
so
bring me other financial things to say, hey, we can pay for it out of this, I'm all for it.
yeah. So we have consensus, 4-1 on the 60-day resolution.
Right, correct.
All right,
That's all we need.
thank you. Next on the agenda is measure 9E, Measure LL Micro Bond Workshop.
Right, give me a second here.
We moved it after the consent calendar.
Yeah, and we'll bring it back for you. All right, I think I have it now. Okay. Right, Dr. Oh, sorry, guys.
We thought we'd present you with our schedule. Thought it might be something.
Make noise all at once.
We have it right now.
Thank you. All in.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Doyle. Again,
January 18, it should be April.
you have the wrong one.
It's the right deck.
It's marked January 18th.
Hold on, guys.
not new election.
Give me a moment.
That's cool. That's what's in it.
Thank you for catching that. We'll get it right. This might be a good time to take a restroom break, so I can pull it over.
Okay. All right, take a 5-minute bathroom break, come back at 9:44.
Yes.
They're really good. I'll bet, but I only, well, listen to it. You need me to reshare it with you? Okay, hang on. She's gonna share with me. Should, but there's probably no. She'll put it out. Bring your children. All right. I'm having issues with the internet here. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we are ready to go.
Ready? Okay, all right.
All right, now let's get started.
Now we're back. All right. Thank you, Dr. Loescher and Grace, for your patience and, as we iron things out. And actually, we had to go to the bathroom, so it worked out.
Well, I believe the blame resides with me. I think I forwarded the wrong link to Dr. Doyle, so,
Okay.
but it was in
thank you, Grace.
anticipation of the bathroom break. There we go.
9E.
Right. Thank you very much. For the board this evening, we're going to move through, not for the sake of time, but for consistency. We have no great news information on financials. Everything's are as projected and are on schedule, so there's no significant change that is unanticipated in any way on financials at this time. As we move into a sort of a discussion point for the evening, I think I want to take an opportunity to thank our principal, Megan, out at Vista High School, her entire administrative team, Mark Taylor, and the group of operations specialists, in particular Scott Connolly and everybody, for facilitating not only a move over winter break into Building T, this is moved to 28 rooms, but in addition to that, they were involved, all of them, with the furniture refresh that was being headed by Amy and her team. So all of that was happening over winter break. During that time period. This is a wonderful picture that they sent over of the teaching staff that is there. And there are many stories to tell about this move when we have additional time, because there's some wonderful stories of how we support each other as a team when we go through the exchange processes. Looking ahead, Grace is going to quickly give us an overview, sort of as your long look ahead for Beaubier Elementary School for that reconstruction and just a general project update and some of the items you had ahead. Grace, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Loescher. Happy moments are happening, right? And that is, we have approval from the Division of State Architect, which means that we're moving forward and things are gonna start to happen. And so basically our GMP for phase 1 is going to be brought to the board for approval next month. And then looking ahead beyond that, the second phase of the bid is also going to be brought to the board in August. And then for, as you know, we're required by the Division of State Architect to have a lab of record, and who this company is responsible for special inspections, which are specific portions of the project to make sure that the materials that are purchased and the installations comply by the approved drawings by the Division of State Architect. And so we recommend, the proposal was reviewed, reasonable. We recommend this company, Nino and Moore, who we currently utilize, and other districts and our district has had great experience with them. And so that will be later on the approval agenda. And then another upcoming happy event is we're planning all these things behind the scenes, community updates in the works. We have a door hanger, that's a draft of it. We have an updated version of it, but this is a draft. And then we also are working on a community meeting to update everyone on what's going on. This was done prior to.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, so the updated draft you'll see.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
The draft that has been updated will be in the Friday letter tomorrow for your review.
Yeah.
But this was created before we did all
We
that.
discussed this.
Yes. But we pay attention and a lot of things are moving. So, yeah, we'll also make sure that the communication is on the website, it's updated as well.
And then this evening, you have 2 items on consent, regarding things coming up, audit services for fiscal year, also building T-Court and moving services. There's also additional items, for Beaubier Elementary School lab of records that will be on consent this evening.
That's it. We'll hand it back to board president.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is 10, the consent calendar. Agenda items 10 to 15. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, the staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent calendar items.
And so is this?
Yes,
I'm looking for,
15B is the topic we were talking about
Yes,
earlier.
that's it.
15B,
15B.
yes.
Yeah, I'd like to pull that one.
10A. For a question.
Wait, no,
Full 10A.
wait, 15B, is that the one that has to do with the bid?
Contracts.
No, but the one for the, what we were talking about
Yes.
with the.
Amy,
bond?
15B, correct?
No, the bid is 15G.
G,
The
okay, yeah,
mailers was with the contracts.
yeah, that's what I want to pull.
Wait, hold on, let's make sure we get
No,
this
that's
right.
not it
That's
either.
not correct, Amy.
It's the one for the bond.
She's looking at the bond.
She's
Oh,
looking-
I thought the
talking about the one for the bond language.
Mailers?
Yes, the
the
mailer.
contract was in 15B.
B,
It is
that was correct,
15B.
15B.
Okay. So I need to know what.
So we're gonna pull 15B and 10A.
So far, yeah.
Any more? Any more?
You done, Raymond? I think I'm done, yeah.
Anyone else have anything? Can I make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the pulling of items 10A and 15B?
So moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
So, we will, the vote, the motion on the floor is to approve the consent calendar minus 10A and minus 15B. Any further discussion?
Wait a minute, hold on. Are you sure it's not? No, you're right, okay.
All in favor of approving the consent calendar as, with the aforementioned changes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Now 10A, approve board meeting minutes, March 14th.
Yes, my question on these minutes is, due to the fact that, the nature of why I was teleconferencing, I believe that needs to be recorded in the minutes related to the, current state allowances for when a board trustee has permission to teleconference and when they don't, related to like that whole.
I'll look further into that AB, I think it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put it previously, when I had to miss a
At the
meeting.
beginning of the agenda.
It's acceptable to miss for a family emergency, but not a work trip, for example. So there's language that was included in a previous set of minutes when it was a similar circumstance.
I'll see what's required and I will.
And we'll
bring it
reference
to
the
board's
previous set
attention.
too.
So we can postpone approving the minutes for March 14th. Is that what I hear you say?
I think so.
It's okay. You-
Or I would feel comfortable as long as the language is added, we can approve provisionally.
Well, you can approve it, with the language added, we can add that language.
That, yes, I have a motion to approve item 10A with the addition of the teleconferencing AB language.
Second? Any further discussion?
I do, that last meeting, I think we didn't do that meeting right, because we did not do, roll call votes. When, was that was the one you teleconferenced in, right?
Yeah, we did.
Everything.
No, we did not do roll call votes. At that meeting, not that one. We did it the last.
So are you asking not to approve the minutes?
No. I just wanted to clarify. I don't know if there's something additional that we need to do.
Let's just pull the minutes
We'll pull them in.
and then
Do we need to?
look into the specifics of the assembly bill
Okay,
because it's changed several times from the
Gotcha.
COVID thing.
No, and I know what we did was correct. We just don't have the language recorded in the minutes.
So let's pull it for next meeting for March 14th. What about March 20th? Can we approve the March 20th special meeting?
I wasn't there, so I've totally abstained from that one.
Yeah, I move that we.
Okay, so, after further discussion, we're gonna table the, approving the minutes for March 14th, but approve the minutes for March 20th. And I need a motion for that.
I move that we table the minutes from March 14th,
14.
and we approve the minutes from March 20th.
It's not tabling, it's postponing. for the
Postpone,
next
sorry,
day.
you're right. I move that we postpone till the next meeting, the minutes from March 14th.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving, the March 20th special board meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion, any opposed? Abstention, all right, the motion carries four ayes, 0 noes, and 1 abstention. All right, and then next is 15B, ratify and approve contracts.
Is there a page number of the blue book that we can reference so we know what we're?
Yeah,
gonna-
I mean, let's pull up the right page so we have it. It's 15B.
So I think it's, the one that I'm looking at would be, capital facilities funds, is that it?
Yes,
Okay,
Does it have
We're
a
trying to
page
find it in the
number?
packet.
I don't have a.
I can pull it up on the screen right here. I have it. I'll make it bigger.
Page 27.
Page,
I'm looking at the right one.
did I hear?
27?
Yeah, it's the last page of the contracts listing.
Thank
You
you.
go to page 5, Matt, at the PDF.
Purchase orders. Okay, so 15 is before that.
She's talking about the purchase orders though.
Oh.
You're looking for 15.
Contracts under consent, not POs under action.
yeah, it's.
Contracts and agreements.
15B says ratify and approve contracts. That's what I'm looking for.
Yes,
Page 27.
page 27.
That's the item though. I think she's.
In the
Oh.
blue book?
The
In the blue book,
actual
it's,
contract listing,
a
Oh,
different,
you want the contract listing in the blue.
not the
I
agenda.
believe page 159. Does it look like this, you guys?
I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, I have the color version, but yes.
Yeah. All right, take it away.
Where do you want? So as part of the ongoing efforts with the, potential bond measure, there is, the line item that you see here would be to do additional mailers that would go out to the entire, community, taxpayers. And so this would be the printing, mailing, and graphic design of those 2 sets of mailers.
In
And
English and
the
Spanish.
English, Spanish, and the associated graphic piece of that.
And this is the team civics?
Yep, that's the-
Okay, so I wanna make sure,
Yes.
for $100,000.
That's the bond
Yeah.
consultant.
Okay, so I have an issue with this in that if the data comes back from the survey that we have commissioned already for $20,000, all right? And it comes back and says that the bond is not feasible, I'm not comfortable spending $100,000, taking it out of our classrooms, spending $100,000 on a maybe, on a possibility that's wasted money if we do that. And I understand that we're under the gun and I understand that this is, a time sensitive thing, but I just am not comfortable doing that. We have oversight responsibility on this board. And I think that that is not a responsible thing to do at this time. And especially if we can, if the bond can pass without getting, the Taxpayers Association's approval, then maybe that's, I'm just not comfortable. I'm just not comfortable. I really wish we had the results from that study before we did this.
Someone else?
Question, I see the funding source is developer fees. Would those funds be used in a classroom if they weren't used for this purpose?
Yes, they could be. So developer fees, by statute, we can use up to 3% of collections to do administrative costs like this. And so it would either potentially be a different administrative cost. We've used this in the past to do the long range facilities master plan, or it could go to a construction project, either way.
So, Dr. Loescher, describe for the trustees what this, about what this mailer would look like.
So this mailer is front and back. It is divided into two groupings, English and Spanish. You don't do all of this into one, you mail them separately. It is a full color mailer, trifold, that has a rip-off palette to give additional feedback to the district. Typically, when districts engage in this activity, they do an initial polling to get some reading. Then they start on a public engagement campaign to gather information. This is considered part of that public engagement. Then they do a second poll after you have a fair amount of public engagement. So that way people can become more informed of what they're doing. And then after that, they oftentimes do another mailer. So this is, I understand it would be for the $100,000 for both of the mailings. If during the process, the board were to choose to say that you do not want to pursue the bond, clearly you would not need to engage in a second mailer.
So it says the total contract cost for this increase is $153,000. What is that? 53,700?
That's for the monthly services of Team Civics. That's Jared and his team. And so that one was originally approved at the very beginning. We held off bringing the mailers forward because we wanted to first do the first survey, move further into the process, and then bring forward the mailers to see if that was something the board wanted to do next.
If state of California was in a little bit more fiscal security, I might be a little bit relaxed about it, saying, okay, well, taxpayers are gonna, they're gonna be, it's just like any other, presidential election year, and there's an okay chance that it's gonna pass. Right now, things are so precarious, I'm just very uncomfortable at this time.
More discussion?
Part of that mailer is to get feedback from the community, so it doesn't hurt to once again do another test in a different format, and if everyone wants to share their opinion, whether it's for or against or neutral, like, doesn't not hurt to get that from our community. So I'm in support of this.
$100,000.
How much is the bond gonna get us if we do approve it?
Still, it's $100,000 on a potential.
Yes. Deciding this,
Can I get an answer to my question?
Between 300 and 365 million.
Correct. Okay.
350.
so along those lines, I thought I could just kind of add it in there to get the answer. So the $100,000 is for flyers.
There are 4 mailers that go to the home. A large portion of that is caught up in.
Deciding to have this bond, are you in favor of it? Like exactly what is this mailer gonna say?
We do have it in the Friday letter for your full review.
Okay, but I have to vote on it.
It has different categories of what, first off, would you be in support of, and the other category is what would you, are you prioritize, what is more important to you, so it would be, I think there's
Isn't
less.
that what the other people are doing for us?
Yeah, the survey is slightly different rather than, so a survey samples a small group on a specific narrow scope of questions. This surveys all taxpayers for their feedback and to elicit their feedback, both informing them of a potential bond measure and asking for their open feedback on a broad range of categories or other items.
And what you're saying, so I'm trying to understand, is until we get the results back, we shouldn't spend $100,000 on something that might not happen for the fact that we have things falling down and everything around us. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I'm saying is, until we get the results back from that survey, I don't think it's prudent to proceed with $100,000. Because we could commit to this money, the survey comes back and says, well, taxpayers aren't ready, it's not gonna pass, it's most likely, they could come back and say, we don't recommend that you pursue the bond at this time. And if that happens, well, we've already committed $150,000 to this second portion of it. And that's, so it doesn't matter how much the bond is gonna bring in, if the bond won't pass it, we're out that money. I just think the prudency means would be take a pause and let's make sure our ducks are in order before we commit to spending. this
So
money.
this is the mailer. So as you're out, there's a lot of questions about it. So let me show you. Obviously, it's a draft mailer. It would be in English and Spanish. So this is the English version. And remember, it's for printing purposes. That's why this is upside down. It's the way you print it.
Yeah, it's not a one pager flyer.
So
it's
there's,
trifold
this is
with-
where the postage stamp would go. The lion's share of the cost of it is actually the postage stamp. So everyone understands that. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people this would go to. So this tells a little bit about that. Here's the link to the survey digitally. This is the address. This is a little introduction that gives some information about why, similar to the bond language we just got finished talking about. This would focus on areas for improvement. We talk about the mandatory fiscal accountability. And then this is that tear off that we referenced before where they would give additional information on it. And then, of course, there's a Spanish version.
Yeah.
So we have English and Spanish and the cost of it, the 100,000 is two mailings, one initially. And then if the board chose not to do it, you wouldn't have to do the second mailing. You can determine when you'd want to do that. So you wouldn't necessarily spend that money if you paused it before the second mailing.
So how much are we spending on the first mailing?
Approximately half.
About half.
Yeah.
We do have a nonprofit, postage, amount, so it's not the full, postage amount that.
So let me understand. So we're gonna do we're gonna run this print job twice, or are we gonna save money and order all of them at once printed?
That I don't want to answer because I did not ask him. My guess is we're gonna do one batch, and then if the board says green light for the second round, we would do the second batch.
Separately?
Yes.
Printed.
Correct. So oftentimes the mailer changes based upon your feedback you get and other items. So you typically do one. What I can say, I do have a little bit of background in that with career technical education, is anytime you print above 5,000, the cost comes down
Right.
dramatically. And then every 5,000 thereafter, there's a diminishing return until you hit 50 to 100,000.
So one more thing, just to clarify the process. So the process was way back in September, for which the board has completed the consideration of thinking about a potential bond. After that feedback, we brought in Team Civics. Team Civics is the strategist for bonds. And they worked with us on and the survey company to develop a survey. That survey was delivered to the community in September. And then the outcome of that survey was brought back to the board.
Right.
The outcome of the survey was actually quite strong, if you remember, in terms of interest.
It wasn't that strong. It
It's
was,
over 60, yeah.
it was not over 60. There was one of them that was within the margin of error that was not over 60.
Well,
It
we can
was-
argue that, but that's already been presented. That report with the polling already has been presented.
Right, and when we allocated funds to do a second survey of polling. And all I'm saying is, I wanna wait till we
Okay,
get
we've
those
heard you,
results.
we've heard you, and I think we need to call the question because it's after 10. Although Rosemary, I heard you ask.
I was just
Dr.
trying to help
Doyle,
people understand, because it is a complex process. It is a very complex process, I understand. So I was just trying to help you understand the process that we're following.
No, I understand.
The second step of the process after the survey was for us to consider whether we want bond language to go to the Taxpayers Association. We got that feedback tonight. The third step is a mailer to the community. That's a traditional process that our strategist has given us, feedback on. That's this mailer, first round. The next step in the process is to do the next survey, which is coming up. And that survey likely will happen in mid-May. When we bring the outcome of that survey back, we anticipate sharing it with the board on June 6th. So that you'll have information from the second survey on June 6th to make a more informed decision about whether or not you'd like us to finish refining the language for a vote in July.
I believe.
So they're all connected.
When did we approve that second survey? I thought that was in February or March.
No, it was just approved.
Last month,
March.
and then the results would come back.
Yep.
Ideally, they would be complete by the June 6th special workshop. They would present their findings.
So the previous month, last month, you approved it, so we worked on it, and now we're ready to deliver it, and it will be delivered in May.
I think June.
No, we're gonna report it back to you on June 6th.
So
Correct.
I'm in favor of the expense because the difference between this and say the next round of polling is high propensity voters. It's a small percentage of our high propensity voters, where this is every stakeholder, every address in Vista, whether you're a registered voter or not. Our families will be able to give us feedback on what they want to see for their schools. And there is a difference between the high propensity voters and our students and our families. They don't necessarily correlate. So this is a way of getting their perspective and their feedback on what they would want to see for repairs for the next bond.
No, I understand. I've done market research, and traditionally, what you're talking about, the small study, you get the results back before you make a big expense like this. I would never tell one of my clients like, oh yeah, just go ahead and, spend the money here while we're waiting for the results from the other one. It wouldn't, anyway, I'm a no.
All right, so,
That's a good question. The mailer very likely will be the very first time people in the community who don't have children in our schools or don't attend board meetings will be hearing about
Correct.
this question at all, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'm 100% for it.
The surveys are the digital surveys only a representation of the community. So we still
Yeah,
have
we need to
motion.
notify our community and get their input.
Move to approve 15B.
Second,
it was moved by trustee Vargas and seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 15B, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries 3-2. All right, next on the agenda is 9C. We moved it. So is that, 9C, we moved it.
We moved both of those. Two of
And
them.
9D.
Yes, so it's
We have
10,
a-
12, and you wanted to check.
Okay, so we'll do 9C first.
Okay.
9C first. Okay, so 9C is summer expanded learning opportunities.
Right.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. Ms. Zeka, take it away.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm here just to give you a quick update on where we are with our planning for our summer program opportunities for this summer. Right, so we have several programs that are coordinated across multiple department teams. We're going to be at some centralized locations this year, trying to work around all this wonderful construction that we'll be doing. We have different programs. We'll have our comprehensive AM/PM program, our special education ESY program. We have an elementary academic intervention program, several multilingual programs. We'll have some remedial and enrichment middle school and high school programs and a jumpstart. And we're coordinating with transportation and Wavecraft so that we'll have transportation and food provided for all of the students. So our first program, Comprehensive AM/PM, is our parent choice program. So any parent is eligible to apply for their TK through eighth grade students. And that will be for the majority of the summer. This will be a 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. program. And we'll have 4 locations. You see the schools there for the elementary, and then middle school students will be at Vista. And those applications will be going out soon to any families interested in attending.
How many openings do you have in those programs, like for?
I believe they're planning to have as many as are interested. So I think they've had a couple hundred in the past couple of years. So with the 4 locations and multiple classes at each place, I believe that with our ELOP program that we have
over
contracts
1,000
that allow
students
us.
attend.
Yeah, we have other staffing that we can bring in if needed.
is it a fee-based program and how much? Or
It-
no longer?
I mean, that's what that's a different department. It's not a fee-based program because we use ELO funds to fund this, but some of our parents need to pay a fee because they get a subsidy. And so we do a chargeback for some of us. So you might hear some people pay a fee.
because of a subsidy that they
Yeah.
get from the
The charge,
county.
yep.
Got it.
Yep, but it's free because of our ELOP funds. Through our special education department, we will have multiple programs. These are for students who have a recommendation to participate in their IEP. This program will start on June 17th and go through the middle of July with 8 to 12:15. We'll have our preschool program at California Avenue. Elementary will be at Alamosa and Maryland, middle school at Vista High for the high school students, and VATSI for our adult transition staff. And so they're confirming the applications out to the eligible parents as we speak. We are also working on an elementary academic intervention program, very much focused. The primary focus is going to be literacy with some math. This program will start right after we get out of school and conclude by the end of June. It'll be a half-day program, 8 to 12. You'll see also centralized at our 4 elementary schools. We are currently working with we've come up with a criteria for selection and a process for pre-assessment with our school administrators. So they are identifying the students that they rank order would be best served in this program.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
So I had the opportunity to Tracy Johnson. And she's working on everything together with the lifestyle, and I will tell you, I love you. And I feel when it comes to this area, this is where we are successful. So I want to thank you because I think you understand how much that is. Thank you.
Sure. I love to do it,
I know you're good at
it. So we've got several different multilingual programs that will also take place in June and half-day programs. We will have a K-5 dual language program for our students, primarily focused on building their Spanish language development. We'll have a K-5 newcomers program, also centralized at 4 of our elementary schools. We'll have an at-risk long-term English learner program that will be focused on our English learners, primarily those that will be going into 4th and 5th grades that are still below a 3 on their LPAC. We will have a 6th grade dual language academy for our students coming up from Grapevine into the Madison, our first rollout of DLI and middle school. And we'll have a newcomer and LTEL programs at our middle schools.
The parents solution.
Not yet. No, we're clearing all the criteria.
The 28th.
Exactly. So Tracy is collaborating with Rafa to get all of the details and the criteria and everything set up for these as well.
We have been highlighting in our committee update, not all the dates yet, but the fact that the programs are coming. We've been kind of telling people they're coming, and now we have the dates and everything solidified, so they'll get it soon.
So they do it like, say, the DLI, newcomers DLI, Alamosa, Greenville, Monte Vista, but all the DLI students will be invited and if they can get to Alamosa, or will it, how's that going?
So we're zoning based on home address. And so they've looked at who are the students and which one of these 3 might be closest to their home. And so they will all get the invitation to participate. Yeah.
And then with Madison, and what we see the great people that will be invited.
Exactly. We talked today about the principal is interested in looking at doing some math support in Spanish. And we talked about also maybe doing some front loading of the language and concepts that they'll be working on in Spanish for history social studies, just so those kids have a little language on ramp to the courses that they'll be taking in Spanish. Each of our middle and high schools will be setting up their options for enrichment, academic intervention, as well as credit recovery. And it sort of depends how long each each course will, last will just depend on how long it takes, to complete, say, the credit recovery or whatever it is. And we are gearing up for Jump Cert again. This is our welcome to our incoming TK and kindergarten students to ensure that the kids are feeling comfortable with the staff and the campus, and that the parents have the opportunity to come on and be there and get to know the school. Have some orientation workshops and community resources available for parents, do some initial assessments. So each school is developing what their plan is right now for that. And a couple of things that came across today that I was remiss in including here, we will also have an elementary visual arts program. And we just worked on a plan for elementary, middle, and high school summer band camps. So we'll have some arts this summer as well.
So we had talked before about our layout of GLAD, and when I had talked about actually doing like a 4-day Devo in this district at summer school.
We're working on still pulling together that portion.
But we're still gonna do it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. There's no, I'm sorry, are there any further questions or comments on our extended learning summer school program?
Just a presentation.
Great, thank you very much. Next is 90, but I do have a speaker on 90, Amanda Redmond. 90 is 2024 LCAP listening session feedback.
Yes, hi, thank you. Again, my name is Amanda Redmond. I'm a parent in the district. And I just wanted to go over and highlight a few things that were in this. Listening sessions and surveys. It says we got feedback gathered from over 1,000 stakeholders, including 600 student voices. I hope I'm understanding that right. Does that mean we only have 400 that were not students? And in a district that we have 18,409 students, and all of them having some sort of parent, guardian, caregiver, that is a very low number. Especially when we go later on to pupil engagement, parent involvement. Districts will seek parent input and decision-making, and they will promote parent participation in the educational programs of all students. We need to do better as a district. If we're doing stuff and we're not getting the feedback, then we don't go, oh, parents, they just don't care. Or they're just not wanting to come forward with it. We have to change how we're doing it and go, okay, we're obviously not doing what's working for them. How do we get parent feedback? How do we get this so that we can get that feedback? Because one of the things I found just being on some social media forums, parents have been very vocal on they are tired of mailers. They don't like us wasting money on mailers, especially for attendance, especially when their kid is attending school and not missing school, and then they're getting a mailer saying don't miss school. As well as the fact that when we have that survey that you could take that was on our website, I decided, seeing that everybody was putting that feedback on those forums, I put the survey and said, you know, you can give your feedback through this. And this is saying this was using online stakeholder feedback, and we still only have such a small amount. And then I wanted to highlight some of the items that are on here, because given from prior, we had a huge room full of all of our teachers and employees. And one of the biggest things on here is we see fears, employees being overworked. And we have on Best Hopes, high quality staff and support with compensation, salaries, and benefits. And please keep that in mind as being a high priority, because they are the ones with our kiddos every day, and that's what's going to make a big difference on their education. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, who is presenting that?
Dr. Olmsted.
Dr. Olmsted.
So tonight I'm just presenting so far the feedback we've gotten from our LCAP. As you're aware, there's a survey online that's posted in both English and Spanish. There have been about 100 responses on that one, but we do go out and do the community forums to representative groups that hopefully are representing their constituents that we're seeing. Really, the goal of our listening sessions has been to talk about program consistency for students, what's working, what's not. And so as we look at the listening sessions so far, we've spoken with students at all schools, representative groups. And so we let principals know, they put groups together, and then our team goes out and does activities with the students to get feedback. We've spoken with our administrators, Vista's Teachers Association, our Classified School Employees Association, Parent Teacher Association, the District Parent Advisory Committee, the District English Learner Advisory Committee, and as you heard, we're going back again Monday to do more for LCAP, parents of students with disabilities, and then our online stakeholder survey, which gets us to about 1,000 responses so far between students and families. Next slide. And when we worked with our families and our students and our community, we put this question up, the same one we've given you, is, how do we continue this progress, recognizing that we do need to make some significant shifts in our budget right now, while still, trying to meet our mission and our vision and all of our goals. Next slide. This is just a review. Dr. Coyle, if you could just slide through these. I just wanted you to know that with these parent presentations and our student presentations, we went through what are the main components of an LCAP. We do conditions of learning, pupil outcomes, and pupil engagement. We talk about what each of those are. We talked about how last year we started already discussing this scale down that we need to do in staffing and resources, knowing that we were losing all of our COVID funding and our declining enrollment. So we talked about, kind of going into that best hopes, worst fears, and explaining how the buckets work. Next slide, keep going. So then we did ask this question, we did posters, and we've been providing summaries of those posters, but this was kind of the themes that keep coming up. Continue to keep a well-rounded education, including sports, music, and the arts. Make sure that students feel safe and a sense of belonging. We have that high quality staff and support with competitive salaries, keeping a sustainable culture of action for historically marginalized students. That really came from our equity committee that we did LCAP session on. And then implementing universal design for learning for each and every student, including students with disabilities. That came from a couple of our stakeholder groups. And then our fears, really cutting our programs. I mean, especially services, meals, transportation, so things that are closest to our students, losing our qualified staff, losing mental health services, employees being overworked and their facilities deteriorating, students falling behind academically, depending on what cuts we make. The loss of restorative justice and trauma-informed practices would be a fear, and just morale of our district. Next slide. So the student feedback, these are the questions we asked them when we did our listening sessions with our students. So really asking them to share their ideas. We talked about the learner portrait. Have they seen this logo? Do they know what it means? Getting feedback around that, but really just asking them kind of how are they feeling at school based on elements of the learner portrait. Next one. These are some of the things they said when we gathered all of their feedback. They're learning, they like what's provided, they have experiences, projects. Their teachers provide support to them. They're able to do presentations, use technology, things like that. So students have a lot to tell us. And as we look forward to our workshop next week, these are the things that we'll be looking at. So we'll be reviewing again the feedback from the board itself and then our LCAP stakeholder groups that we've been working with, looking at our goals and progress from this past LCAP and kind of successes we've had and challenges we've had as well. Reviewing our draft LCAP goals, actions, and services for initial feedback, and allowing the board to look at what we're doing and making more recommendations for us as we continue to build our LCAP. And then really, what's the relationship between the development of the LCAP and the budget, and specifically the use of base funding, where that's really where we need to cut our budget, is in that base funding. Questions?
No, thank you. I don't have questions as well.
How does this participation compare to last year's and recent years? The level of engagement?
It's about the same, especially with the online surveys. We don't get a lot of feedback from the online surveys. I feel that we're doing more engagement sessions in the public though, than more so than we did last year. So really going and doing that first listening session, and then we'll be going back out once we have more of the LCAP developed and going back to show, here's what we listened to, here's how it's showing up in the LCAP now. So those will all happen after we do our board workshop and get more direction from the board.
So prior to last year, we've had great involvement, great engagement. I would go to the meetings, the live meetings. They were always a nice little crowd there. So I would say we used to.
Yeah,
I hear get much more engagement than what I see here.
Yeah, and the sessions we've been doing, there's usually usually about 20 people, when we attend these. Sometimes up to 40 or 50, depending on the audience that we're seeing.
How are the students selected? Do they have the opportunity to volunteer? Is it selected by admin?
Yeah, admin and teachers select the students who are coming.
And can you describe that group? Are they student leaders? Are they?
It's a mix. So we make sure we're picking ABC students, students who have struggled, students with attendance, interventions that have happened. So we try to do a wide range of students who are attending those sessions.
Any further questions? All right, thank you so much. Next on the agenda is 16A, ratify and approve purchase orders. And we have another speaker, Amanda Remen.
Actually declined on this one.
All right,
Make a motion to approve 16A.
any further, okay, moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving 16A, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries four ayes, 0 noes, and 1 abstention by trustee Morocco. Next is 16B, approve recommendations for the calendar, from the calendar committee for school calendars 2024, 2025, 2025/2026, and 2026/2027.
Come on up, Senator. So we have a presentation. We don't have to do it. We just prepared one. You have the calendars in front of you. Maybe you could take 30 seconds to explain why we did it. This is something we do every year.
Yes, absolutely. Hello again. So we have a committee, a calendar committee that has met. They have done a review and done some revisions to the calendar that's upcoming. And then also for next year, and then also have 2 draft proposals for the 2 years after that. Yes.
So, couple questions, how are these calendars distributed via print or online or both?
They are online, but can be printed.
Okay.
I know that we have them printed in offices.
I got you.
Well, and they're typically included in the packet for every student at the
Exactly,
beginning of the
registration.
school year on paper.
So I was gonna ask, because sometimes I like how I'm looking at this one that is for the 2024-25
Yes,
school
I got it
year.
right here.
And you have some key dates that are highlighted.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if it wouldn't be too much trouble to potentially for the online version, maybe color coordinated a bit so that certain things like vacations and first day of school and things like that
Mhm.
are a little bit more visually easy to find.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a problem.
Probably is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
So that would be my only.
I mean, there's would they use the bolded and the italics?
Right.
But they could probably do color too. We would just have to put a little table
Code,
somewhere to
yeah.
code some.
Well, if you have bad eyes, it's kind of hard to see the bold in the end.
Mhm.
Let's play around with that a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
We'll see what it
All
looks like.
Otherwise, do you need a motion?
Yes, this needs to be approved.
I move that we approve item 16B.
All second, further discussion?
You didn't get an opportunity to finish your presentation. Was there any?
No, we really tried to include all of the bullets on here, just about what we take into consideration. And I think that the highlights that, trustee Morocco was referring to, we tried to highlight the things that were different from your last approval, just so that they would pop for you.
Calendar committee.
Yeah.
And those to you.
It's complex.
Yeah, crazy. I have a question, because I guess when you were working on this, somebody reached out to me from the committee and asked me how classified in July.
June.
So in July.
Okay.
They were asking me, and I kind of tried to remember from when I was on there, but I sent them your way. Actually, I think I sent them to CRPA.
Okay.
What was the
Are
question?
classified. Is there something about working in July? They have to
It's
work
June,
one day,
and
they
Rachel
don't
might
have
have
to-
something, but so one of the pieces in our sort of our criteria is that we have to have at least one school day in June in order for them to have their benefits and everything and their June paycheck. They're classified, yes.
Okay, are they allowed to work in July? All classified, or is there a rule that some of them can't?
I don't know of a rule that they can't. If they're working in July, for example, ESY goes into July, any summer school, a little later, that's why we have the MOU regarding classified supports and that they'll have opportunities to be utilized to support those. Yeah, unless it's a
I didn't know
specific.
the answer because I didn't remember, because that committee was just way up.
Yeah, and an employee that works into the summer that is typically an 11-month employee, they have to work before or after that holiday to get that pay. So that works for Juneteenth and July. So maybe that's,
So, yeah, but anyway, so you must have figured it out, I guess. You never heard, so. But I know that.
Any further discussion?
I sit on this committee, or I'm the board representative to the committee, so a couple themes I thought were relevant to share from the meetings that the group had are that we're concerned that the school year keeps scooching back earlier. But then through discussion, there's reasons that that happens, but this is something that, you know, people maybe struggle with and, you know, we need to understand the rationale. There's discussion or about having a longer spring break and whether that could be good for families in terms of like childcare for working parents and concerns across elementary versus secondary. I think those were two themes. I don't know if you.
Yeah, so with the timing, we're trying to make sure that we're trying to finish finals before kids go out for the winter holidays so that they're not spending their time prepping. And we try to balance out the semesters before and after.
Motion is second on the floor.
We're having discussion,
Further
Your
discussion?
discussion is between us, not between staff.
No, we
Yeah.
can ask the
Yeah,
staff
you can
anything.
ask the staff.
Not my understanding of Robert rules.
We can ask the staff anything.
So we talked about, so I think that the team did talk about the spring break, extending spring break or adding some days to the February presidents to have a full week off. And after looking at attendance data and the members going out and speaking to other people, I think you'll see in the proposals for the coming years to have the February be a full week.
All right, all in favor of approving 15B,
16B.
excuse me, 16B, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. 16C, Vista High, school field and track renovation. We have a speaker, Amanda Remen.
I can see you're so excited. Yes, again, Amanda Remen. I just wanted to go over real quick because my son goes to Vista High and it's been a rocky road. We are loving the school, but it has been a rocky road. And with doing it this summer, which it looks like is what is being presented as the most likely one, there's 3 choices. I'm not gonna say what I want as my choice. I more have an issue with talking to parents. When the students and parents found out, they were told it's already decided. And I'm like, that's weird because I haven't seen it in a board meeting. So, and I've heard that from many of people at Vista High, because when it did start being talked about, it spreads like wildfire. And one of my big concerns is that we talk about wanting parent feedback, wanting students feedback. So when you're looking at different options, having that feedback would be great if we gave some of that information to our families of, hey, this is going to be coming up. If you want to know, there's going to be an agenda line, come and speak with how you feel. I did notify some parents and they were all very upset that last minute they found out today, oh my gosh, I'm gonna try and get over there. But as we all can see, it's been a really late meeting. So mainly my concern is just that when we're making choices like that, if we can please just focus on making sure we're also taking in consideration feedback from our families and our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, who's gonna present?
No, I'll start and then I'll hand it off to Dr. Loescher. So this, and we have some historical perspective on this, but for the record, that's why we have it on the agenda tonight, because we did get feedback from parents and other folks, in particular band and football, and we felt like we need to share that with the board. So this actually came to the board a year ago. The project was supposed to start a year ago, and there's a number of reasons why, or 2 years ago, why it hasn't started. So we felt it's necessary because there's not a perfect answer on this. Some decisions will cause problems. The other decisions may cause different problems, and that's why we're having this conversation tonight. That's the whole purpose of this conversation tonight. This is more appropriate for the board. So as a superintendent, when I'm faced with decisions and I hear that there's some controversy and some differences of opinion, it's my job to bring it to the board. That's why it's here tonight. So let's jump into it and walk them through it. And while, there's a number of slides here, it's really important to understand the historical perspective on this. So I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Loescher, and we have our architect, Josh Eckel, here as well, because he was part of the process, and he can give you some of the details of it and what makes this complex. Take it away, Sean.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doyle, and thank you to all the members of the board. I wish we were presenting something that's simple and it's just about one project. It is not simply about one project. This is one large project that does have historical perspective that we're going to review, but moving projects around has something called dependencies. I mean, other projects are dependent upon it. So as we talk about these things, we want to make sure that we are transparent with you, that we would be also impacting other projects down the road. The renovation of the field and the track at Vista High School, as we go through this process of talking about it, is tied to the renovation of Rancho Buena Vista's field, which is a second step, which is tied to the renovation of their gym, which is falling out of CIF compliance and is at a point where it can no longer be reused, and their bleachers. So as we look at many of these things, we can look at it as a single project, but there are implications.
Wait, RBV's gym or Vista High's gym?
RBV's gym is out of compliance.
Really?
Yeah, the floor is down to the cement in one corner. So some of the compelling issues, why was this project brought originally before the board? First and foremost is always student safety. The field has had a number of issues around it. ADA accessibility is a factor, meaning American with Disabilities Act. Regulations for CIF, different sports are being played on the field now, lacrosse and other items, to make sure it's CIF compliant, including an item that we are very proud of on some of our fields, but we have more lanes at this particular high school on the track than are required by CIF. But actually one of the lanes goes into fences that open, which makes the entire track is not supposed to be played on for CIF compliance. So we have other factors that are about its age, the erosion, the drainage. We've shown pictures on Friday Letters where after rains, you see the field is flooded. The age of the facility, every synthetic turf, every field, whether it's synthetic turf or not, has an end of life associated with that field, particularly for athletic fields. And we are well past the age of life. The programs that are being played on the field are fundamentally different than when the field was constructed. And there are various design factors that lead and complicate this. For example, when we have this field, we don't have a place where we can drive trucks around without damaging the track and other items. It wasn't designed that way, so design factors need to come into this.
Dr. Loescher, can I interrupt you? I believe we need to vote to extend our meeting.
Yeah, it's 10:47. We have to do it before 10:30, right? Yes, okay.
Sorry. May I make a motion to extend the meeting for another hour till 11:45?
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas to extend the meeting to 12 to
1 hour to
1 hour
11:45.
to 11:45. Lord have mercy. Any further discussion? All in favor of extending the meeting to 11:45, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. No, thank you very much, Leslie. As far as timeline, what Dr. Doyle brought up is correct. Actually, this project goes back before my time and had been put on the consideration for board and been approved to move forward. The original project date that was anticipated was in 2002. What happened?
2022.
2022, my apologies. What happened in this process? The Division of State Architects reviewed all athletic field requirements and determined that athletic fields were falling underneath the purview of DSA because they were not meeting ADA requirements and additional requirements for student safety. Therefore, the project was not simply about removing old turf and putting down new turf. All new requirements came into play. So we had to revise the design scope. We did go back to the board for an increase of scope approval. We went through that process in February and you did approve the project at that time. However, since the approval, we have been taking feedback from community members, which we often do when we're looking and planning projects, and that's why we're before you this evening. Now, to review with you some of the differences here on the increased scope of work, our architect is here to walk you through that slide.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Loescher. Good evening, everyone. Good to see all of you again. So as Dr. Loescher said, once the Division of the State Architect did require that these turf and track projects need to be reviewed by them, we went back and evaluated the scope of the turf and track project at Vista High. In the slide in front of you, we have some of the items that are taken into consideration as part of this project. The first one is the demolition. Obviously, we need to remove the track. We need to remove the turf. We can no longer just overlay these elements anymore. They have reached their end of life and we have to basically start over with them. So we are removing them fully. In addition to that, as you've seen the photos, these areas get tremendously flooded during rain events. So now we need to evaluate that drainage, which we have determined to be insufficient for the field and for the track. So we will be installing all new drainage. We will be removing everything down to the sub base, which is all the way down to the soil, and we will be rebuilding all of that up, including the drainage. Then we start to put things back in terms of the turf. So we will be putting brand new turf with all of the subgrade and all of the elements associated with it. We will be replacing the track in its entirety. So again, we will not be overlaying this. This will be brand new from the ground up. As Dr. Loescher mentioned, we will be providing vehicle access. That is something that is poorly missing from this portion of the campus. You cannot get to the upper athletics area properly without having to drive on the track. So we will be addressing that on the northern end of the stadium. We also will be addressing fencing. So not only will we be addressing the fencing around the perimeter of the track, but we will be providing new areas of fencing that will separate some of the track and field events from the spectator seating, which as of right now, that doesn't necessarily always occur. We also will be developing striping plans and have developed those striping plans for the field. That includes some of our new sports that we are playing out there. We do have female flag football that is occurring out there. We do have our lacrosse sports, soccer, as well as football. All of those will be included as the striping plan as part of the turf.
I think that's a wonderful explanation as to the scope of work, and it's a really incredibly detailed way of saying this is not the type of project that we came to you with to discuss in 22, nor is it the type of the project that happened the last time there was a field replacement. So a lot of the conversation on the feedback that we've gotten is the last time we did this, we did it at this time of year. Well, the last time we did this, we did not go back to the sub base and scrape the earth and replace new drainage. So it's fundamentally a entirely different scope of project. And I think that's what we want to make sure to communicate is that we do have a disconnection between an understanding of what happened last time and what's happening this time.
I did have one question about this, which is like, after this is complete, what will be the lifespan?
Generally, it's about a 10-year lifespan. And that is for the turf itself. And so every 10 years, you should replace that turf. The beauty of the way we're doing it now is we're doing it right. We're building it back up. So we're only going to be replacing the turf in 10 years. We're not going to be going and replacing drainage and sub base. Over the years, and previous replacements have not done it to that level. So it's probably been 20 to 30 years before you've actually done this to the level where you put that drainage.
Yeah, I think 2004, I think was.
Probably don't even, and at that time, I don't know if they even went all the way down and replaced the drainage. They may have done piecemeal.
The final two items listed inside of that scope of work is again, just bringing up Vista High School is DSA approved at this time. That was slated for 2024, 2025. Rancho Buena Vista High School was slated to go next. It's not currently RBV, it's not currently DSA approved. So it's not as simple as having a discussion that you can move one or the other. One is approved, one is in the process of being approved at this time. For project preparations, we simply listed out all of the items based upon working with the board and receiving direction. All of the team members that are in place on this, we have our architect here this evening. This project falls within the purview of the grounds department. Mr. Anthony Arias will be leading that. DSA approval has been completed. Project management is issued by GAFCON. The inspector of record CIS, which we've had on many of our projects. The lab is Nino Moore. That's who we're using for Fovier. That was approved, or is it's slated for your consideration later this evening. And then recommended contracting method on this one is different than other projects. We are recommending that we go with a lease back contract. So that's what we plan to put out to bid, and we would come to the board with that contract. So what are some of the alternative options? I want to be really clear with the board about this, having been through many of these projects. There are no good times to do field renovations for a high school. I've run high schools. There's no good time to do it. It's always a disruption. The main people that it's going to disrupt are athletics and bands from a programmatic aspect. Other disruptions to site operations include reorganizing an area of refuge for safety, which is typically your stadium structure during the time, and all the sort of festivities go along with being in high school, whether that be large scale pep rallies right down to graduations and promotions and welcoming ceremonies. So for athletics, what we're looking at is maximizing the remaining facilities on site. Coordinating with Rancho Buena Vista High School, we want to thank Rancho Buena Vista for reaching out to Vista High and for looking at coordination options for the games. So that way we can look at what games they can share for a stadium. Keep in mind, everybody's really motivated to cooperate because eventually Rancho Buena Vista will have to go and play at Vista High. So they're looking at how they would do this back and forth. Use of fields for practice. We're looking at Rancho Minerva, since the site will not be used, using the upper fields for that purpose. And Vista Magnet Middle School, which is the former Vista High School, does have a football compliant regulation field. They're being looked at as an office for practice fields. Also, we're working and meeting with the city for coordination on joint use at VAPA and their sports fields to see what we can do for those items, as they do have some turf fields, and that's important for things such as lacrosse. For bands and other activities, again, we're maximizing remaining fields, looking at the coordination with RBV, and looking at additional fields at other schools, since the band doesn't have to be on a specific regulation field. They can mark off fields. I've done this. I've worked with music programs. We're used to marking off fields, so that way you can practice for competition. You do eventually get to a regulation field. Yes.
I have two questions. One, kind of maybe should have went before. Okay, so as far as the field usage, because as you know, the AD and stuff, we will have transportation to and from these practices, correct?
That is our intention.
Free to the students.
That is our intention, absolutely.
Okay, and then the other thing is, it was first brought to my attention by Ken Gammey, who is our, our band person in the district is retired, but he's famous, he's the judge, he's the whole. When they did the field last time. I'm sure everybody knows. They said, so when they built the box, you know what box I'm talking about, at the top of the.
Press box, yeah, the press box.
And where the judges are, that they didn't do the right dimensions and they can't do the job correctly, whatever it is, because as we know, we have a history of not doing our projects the way they should be done, so can that be fixed?
So to address that item specifically, so I do know the issue that's being spoke of. That falls out of the scope of this project. This is limited to the track and field. It is on the long range facility master plan. And from my lens and my eye, when we look at those things, yes, there are specific requirements for Drum Corps International judging and other items that have to go in there, and no, those items aren't present. So the judges do their best. But yeah,
And
it would
they
have to
said
be
at
redone.
some point we could be disqualified from having those tournaments, which takes away all their booster money, so.
That is their right.
But we can bring back that in terms of what would
Yep.
it take to rectify that?
Yes, we can 100% do that, and it is on the long range facility master plan for address.
Go ahead.
Rosemary, did you say you had two questions?
Yeah, I asked them both.
Okay, I have a question. When did we last do gopher remediation at Rancho Minerva and Vista Magnet?
We've been very busy in that area. Take it away.
So gopher and squirrel remediation is part of what we don't talk about a lot publicly, because we're talking about thousands of furry creatures being returned to the countryside, shall we say. They're not, they're euthanized, is the truth of the matter. We have ongoing, we have a extraordinarily over the last 18 months, successful gopher project. Vista Magnet Middle School's field was refurbished in partnership and in discussions with Pop Warner Football.
Yep.
That field was just done last summer and is in the best condition that it's been in years.
Okay, good.
We have ongoing remediations at all site and a contract that continues through next year for that.
Weekly
Weekly,
gopher abatement.
it is.
It's actually not gophers, it's squirrels.
It's squirrels is the primary problem, and the
Squirrels.
superintendent is a pacifist, but he is not a fan of squirrels.
I'm not a fan.
We've been clear about that.
Okay, all right,
Okay, so what you have before you, this slide, did you have a question? I didn't.
well,
wanna jump in.
I wanna just get to the people who haven't asked questions, trustee Vargas?
Ready for a motion?
Okay, all right, so I make a motion to approve.
Did you have choices, so one.
I understand.
Okay, good.
I understand.
Wanted to make sure.
I've been thinking about this.
Yeah, I got it, I'm glad.
Okay, so, I make a motion to approve option one, summer 2024.
My second.
So motion by myself, seconded by trustee Morocco. Now further discussion. The reasons that I want to go with option one is because the cost impacts that go with a $5.5 million job. If we wait, that turns out to be $550,000. And because weather we hope will be better rather than, later on in the fall and winter. So that's my, reasoning on that. Any further questions, discussion? All right, all in favor of approving option one, summer 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, to approve option one, 5-0.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 5G, approve the annual declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you. Every year, the Board of Trustees will need to approve blanket declaration of need. We project or we guess on how many teachers that we might need to have emergency credentials for. And so Suzanne Chada, our credential analyst, does a great job of kind of predicting that. We always over predict. We can always take this back, but this has to go to the county by June.
I move that we approve 16D.
Okay.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16D, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is 16E, approve and ratify tentative agreements between the Vista Unified School District and CSEA and its chapter 389.
And we are excited to bring before you the tentative agreements for the reopeners. On this item, it has attachments that are all of the tentative agreements with the bold and the changes. And then also we have the new salary schedule with the 4%. We have a professional growth program that we have with classified that we're gonna actually be holding some workshops through the rest of this year. That new schedule is there. We added another layer to that. And then the AB 1200 that was sent to the county that was approved.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion?
Question. Does this include the sunshine for the STI?
No, because this was sunshined back
Okay, gotcha.
and earlier in the fall.
Okay.
Are all in favor of approving 16E, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is 16F, approve the memorandum of understanding by and between the Vista Unified School District and the California School Employees Association and its chapter 389 regarding summer school and classified supports.
So as we went through our articles and came upon some tentative agreements, we did want to, I guess you could say, try out an MOU regarding summer school impacts for our classified employees. Basically letting everybody know they're available, we need to utilize them while we're implementing, actually setting up and implementing summer school programs. So we're going to do this for this summer, see how it goes, and then potentially add this language into a contract.
I move we approve item 16F.
Second.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16F, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries 5-0. Next is 16G, approve the memorandum of understanding by and between the Vista Unified School District and Vista Teachers Association regarding Article 18 and collaboration.
This MOU will add back collaboration time, the 1 hour on Mondays in either early release or late start. It will also be incorporated into the final tentative agreement back into the contract. This is just to get approval so that we can move forward in planning for next year.
I move we approve 16G.
Second. Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16G, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Next, 16H, accept the audit report of I. Bailey LLP for the fiscal year 2022-23.
So this is year 3 of our new auditor, Ide Bailey. We switched to this audit firm 3 years ago. Based on an RFP process that we completed, we were looking for an auditor that was gonna do deeper dives, more thorough analysis into our processes because we wanted to be more proactive to find issues and get them fixed. So as of year 3, we have down to 2 findings this year. The first one was on the attendance side, our ACES program with our middle schools, where we have some of the sites. There were some issues with the documentation of when students left early or for the ACES program, you have to stay a certain amount of time. And so the records were not quite reconciling when parents were taking their students out. And so we did have to do a restatement of the attendance. Our resolution on that is we're gonna go out to the sites and do additional training, refresh training to those sites, just to make sure that they're aware of how to do the bookkeeping per se on the attendance records. The second item was on financial statements. We had a couple of the other funds that needed adjustment, year-end adjustments. One was on the ASB account. With cash handling, that one is a timing issue because the schools get out the end before the end of June, and then when they come back in August, that's when they reconcile their year end. Some of the sites had adjustments that needed to be done because at that point, the books had been closed. And so when the auditors came in, they had to do some adjustments. And so we had our first meeting with the ASBs. We'll continue that process through the year of how can we help them to develop some accrual processes so that they can accrue more items before they go out for the summer break so that there's less risk of items that are being missed when they come back in August because school's starting. And so for them, it's they're doing 2 years at the same time. The other major one was on the CNS side. We had a last minute unfortunate retirement due to family emergency. And so there wasn't enough runway for training. And so we had interim staff helping to close the books. And so the claims were overstated that were submitted to the state. So it resulted in reducing the revenues for the year by $600,000. We still finished the year $11 million. We're still on a spending plan because we still have too many reserves in that fund. Mitigation for that is we now have our permanent accountant. We have monthly meetings with that permanent accountant. CNS is in a different facility, so that cross-trained is now is more structured so that it occurs regularly, so that in the event that accountant may be out, that we have someone already trained on the runway that can fill in for that spot. And then the other two funds were one of the pass-through bond funds was a lovely fair market value where you have to identify the change in cash value on June 30th based on market performance. Because that bond is technically a pass-through with deposits and then paid out, that fair market value entry was not realized that it needed to be booked because there was a balance on that day. And so we're revising our checklist to ensure that that fund is monitored on June 30th, because if there's a cash balance, we have to calculate that fair market value adjustment. And so those are the two findings. 23-24 will be the 4th year of Hyde Bailey. We are going to go out and do another RFP. With the addition of all the different federal and state programs, the cost of this audit has gone up. And so we just want to make sure, since the RFP was 3 years ago, go out and do a competitive pricing to make sure that we're getting a fair price.
Moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16H, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Next, 16I, approve the San Diego Taxpayers Association Agreement.
Thank you very much, President Alvarado. In previous reports to the board, we've reported back on our transparency rating and other items regarding our bond and bond management. One of the recommendations made by the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, the independent organization that oversees our bond, was to engage with an organization such as the San Diego Taxpayers Taxpayers Association for what's called a performance audit. Amy just reported to you on a financial audit. A performance audit is not required by law, but it is recommended from time to time that you engage in this for the purpose of informing the public on how you're performing over 6 key performance indicators, including projects and program budgets, change order rates, procurement, contractors and professional services, KPI 4, construction management, the overall transparency of your bond, and KPI 6, which is performance versus bond criteria for the public. So this audit would take place in the next several months and would be something that would be reported to the school district. It's not a public audit for our consideration and review for anything from policy, for board policy or administrative regulations, back to practices and protocols used, all for the bond.
How much does it cost us anything to have this on?
$29,500 is the cost for the.
It's on the agreement.
All right, then I move that we approve items 16I. Is it 16? Yeah, 16I.
Second. Okay, so further discussion.
One question, when we last have we did one of these?
We've never done.
We have not done one.
Have we done one in Measure O?
Oh, I would have to look. Amy, we'll let you know. We'll look and let you know in the Friday letter.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So I'm just curious, just trustee Morocco. What is the difference, say, with paying this organization $29,000 on something that's not required versus like a an expenditure from earlier.
Because this bond is already passed. This is just a gauge of how well we've been spending that money, and $29,000 and $150,000 are two completely different amounts also. What my problem with that money from before was not necessarily the spending of the money either, it was spending of the money, it's putting the cart before the horse. Spending the money before we know for an absolute fact that we are going to go forward with trying to procure a bond. That's my problem.
Would the Taxpayers Association, like, is this something that they look at when they approve or deny or endorse, or what is the wording?
The grading, tell
yeah.
them about the
So
grading.
one has nothing to do with the other.
It doesn't.
No. However, they do look at things such as your previous transparency ratings and other items. But as far as this item is independent of the other item. One is not incumbent upon the other.
Interesting. All right, any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving, 16I, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, the motion carries 5-0. Next, 16J, approve Nino and More proposal for Inspector of Record Services.
I move we approve 16J.
Second.
Any further discussion on 16J? All right, all in favor of approving it was moved by trustee Morocco and seconded by trustee Vargas. All in favor of approving 16J, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. 16K is next. Approve the resolution 2421 authorizing the use of CMAS contract 42106-1092 awarded to Train US Incorporated to replace a 450-ton chiller at VHS.
It's a big chiller.
Second.
Central plant, full
It's part of the plan.
End of
Moved by
life,
trust-
we don't replace it, and then
no air conditioning,
Yeah.
all in camp.
Yeah.
these are ESSER funds.
Yeah, moved by trustee Vargas and seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor of approving 16K, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. And then next is 17, but there's no continuation of comments from the community, so it's 18A, discuss and approve possible changes to July and August board meeting. And trustee Kelly had some conflicts and she just wanted to propose
Yeah,
some dates to the board as possible.
since we set our calendar at the beginning of the year, I have conflicts with July 18th, August 1st, and August 8th. One of those is a workshop, two of them are regular board meetings because, there's less than a 4-week window, so. I recall trustee Vargas, you were gonna have a conflict with the August meeting.
Yep.
And so if two of us are missing it, I didn't know if we wanted to discuss possibly rescheduling that and the same, the July 18th meeting. I have work obligation where I have to be out of town and I won't be able to attend that.
Well, let's start with the August 8th meeting. What do you guys, are you trustee Smithfield or trustee Morocco? How do you feel about changing the 8th?
15, 22, 29 are available.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The next 3 Thursdays that month are available.
Oh, so.
We're looking at August 1st.
No, I think he's saying
Yeah.
15th.
I can't do the 15th.
Okay,
Is school
I
22nd.
can't do the 15th.
the
So I
22nd.
can't do the 22nd.
I can only do the 8th.
Okay, so. There would be 3. On the 8th.
It would be quorum.
Yeah, you have one.
And if any of us get sick, we could zoom in hypothetically, but we're gonna be here physically in town. Yeah, so it looks like Cause you can only do the 8th. Yeah, it doesn't work out for any of us, unfortunately.
I can do the.
No, we can do the 8th,
Yeah.
but I mean like the changes.
Yeah.
What about the first? What about flipping the special to the special and
Well,
like the one,
don't we still need a quorum?
right, but does it work for anyone to do
I
the
can't
regular
do
on the first? No?
Either, no.
Can you do the first? Can you guys do the first so that we have 4
Well,
people?
we're already committed to the first, cause it's.
If we flip it, or does that not make sense?
Doesn't make, I don't think it makes a difference.
No, cause for the action items, we're gonna vote on things.
Uh-huh.
And isn't 4 people better than 3 people? Huh?
Okay.
I mean, is it or not?
Only gives us a shorter time between July and August too, so I don't know, somebody mentioned that.
It's already short.
It's tough to have 2 board meetings that close together.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so just leave it at 3 trustees?
yeah.
Okay,
How about July 18th? Do you want to move that?
I mean, if it goes till midnight, I can make it. Yes. Just
we
saying.
got a pretty good track record, you may make it,
You want to go back to July then?
yeah.
I can't change, well, I could do the July 11th, that's.
How about the week of July 22nd? Any day that week?
No. Come on, so no.
Baby's been week up in LA, sorry.
July 11th?
I can attend July 11th. Or 20.
What's happening July 11th?
Looks like we have 4 so far. Martha's gonna check.
Okay.
To the 11th?
She's, Martha's checking her schedule.
Well,
Okay.
but 4 of you said you can, so that makes sense. Just change it to the 11th.
Are you able to make it on the 11th?
Well, 4 people is better than
Well, we would have 4 on this.
either way,
episode, too.
4.
Yeah. That does 11 work for you,
Yes. Yes,
okay? All
yes.
right, to July 11th. So we're only making
Yeah.
one move. We're
Yeah.
making July 18th, Chris, to July 11th. And did you notice any issue with July 11th that we're not aware of?
Not that I
Okay,
see.
so we're gonna double check everything. We're pretty sure that will work. We'll confirm with everyone. July 11th.
All righty, thank you for the flexibility.
I do have one more question for you.
Yes.
Regarding, for the board, regarding June 6th, that's a special board meeting. That's when we do the first round of the LCAP and the budget. That's the public forum. We, would like to agendize, if you're comfortable, our survey for the bond person coming in and giving you the results of that. So are you comfortable with me adding that to the special board meeting?
Yeah, only if we get due diligent time for our LCAP before we're asked to pass.
Okay, we would have the LCAP first, and then would be after that.
Okay.
And we can start the meeting earlier if you want, so that you have as much time as you need.
I think that's a good idea.
And we do have 2 workshops. We have one next week for the LCAP, and we have another one in May for the LCAP. So we've added a lot of opportunities for the board to weigh in. But yes, we intend to do the LCAP first, and then after the LCAP, we'll do feedback on the bond. We can do it another day. I just wanted to see if you guys wanted that to happen.
So I'm
'cause-
fine as long as we don't shortchange the LCAP.
Okay. And then one last question. Annually, we do an update, Nicole McAllister, you all know Nicole McAllister, does an update on the work we've done on our equity. We don't have one scheduled right now at the end of the year, so we can either do it in a Friday letter, we can do it in a 2x2 with Nicole, or we can add it to a meeting coming up. But we don't have a workshop for equity, and this is the first year in about 3 or 4 years that we haven't had an end of year equity follow-up.
What is the will of the board?
It could be Friday letter, it could be in a 2x2, or we could.
Friday letter.
Friday letter?
Let's have it at the start of the 24-25 school year because we can look back and invigorate our
Okay.
work for that school year?
Let me look for a couple of dates and I'll put it in the Friday letter.
Or put it in the Friday letter, be amenable to that as well, but I think, you know,
We'll put it in the Friday letter, and then if you want us to bring her in person, and have a conversation, we can do that as well. Is that amenable to everyone? I just want the board to think that we forgot it. We intend to give it to you in the Friday letter for now. All right.
All right.
Like I went through that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're done.
Well,
What was, we need to put something on the next agenda?
Yeah, the behavior team, we'll
The
have it
behavior
ready.
team, okay, that for the next, regular board meeting.
Yeah.
And then, I guess that's it, unless anyone has,
yeah, I have a request.
Mhm.
Last month on the consent calendar, I don't know how I missed it, because I'm usually pretty good at going over the consent calendar. But there was an item, an $80,000 increase to Michael Pollan's contract, so that we're paying $330,000. I really would like to have a discussion about that.
Okay.
It seems like a lot of money, so,
a discussion to know how it's being spent.
well, or to see if it's even necessary, or like, I mean,
It's been approved, once it's approved,
We can put it in the Friday letter for you.
during a meeting, you can ask to reconsider a vote.
I get that, but this, I can also, the meeting directly after, can I ask for it to be, if it's something I voted for? Yes, I
No.
believe so, I can
No.
ask if it's if I would have voted differently, which I would have, I can ask for it to be reviewed. I can ask, there's that thing that, Peter told us about. That if it's, it has to be done at the meeting directly after, and if and it has to be brought up by somebody that would have voted differently. So, I mean, I don't know that, so
If you want to start with the Friday letter, I can give you an explanation, we can.
well,
take the
I
next
kind of
step.
would like to have it, I kind of would like, I make a motion to reconsider. That's what it is, it's a motion to
You
reconsider.
have to do it during the
No, you
meeting.
don't, you can do it at the meeting, the meeting directly after, you can do it, you can pull it up.
So we can check into that.
No, it has to be done at this meeting.
No, it doesn't. It does not have to be done.
Yes, it does, it has to be
You
done.
can
at this meeting.
reconsider a question
No, you can.
during
reconsider.
the meeting.
You can call to have a vote reconsidered, but it has to be done, at the meeting directly after, if you would have voted differently. Okay, motion to reconsider either identifies error in law or in fact in a prior board decision, or identifies a change in law that affects a prior board decision. Ask the board to reexamine its ruling. A motion to reconsider
During the meeting.
is based on the existing record and does not seek to introduce new facts or evidence. Well, this is Department of Justice stuff.
It's during a meeting. You reconsider the question
And
during a meeting.
It's the meeting directly after a meeting, it was.
I disagree.
Okay, here, parliamentary procedure. Reconsider a motion or, may be done on a matter previously decided. The motion to reconsider is used for this purpose. So. Okay, wait, but there's the motion to rescind,
During the meeting.
which may be made at any later meeting,
According to what?
Robert's rules. I'm on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. I got the book at home. I'll get back to you and let you know if that's an option.
Well, no, the problem is that I'm making a motion to reconsider. All right, if it turns out that it has to be done at this meeting, then,
At this meeting?
yes.
It's not on the agenda.
It doesn't, no, it was,
It would come back at the next meeting.
no, it has to be decided.
No, it doesn't. It's
Yes.
not on the agenda.
No, it does. It's,
The-
it was on the last agenda, so it was noticed on the last agenda. It's already been noticed.
No,
Okay.
your point is
but-
not well taken.
Well,
So
all
we
right.
do have a paragraph from the board governance training. If you'd like Chris to read it from the minutes from the board governance training about this topic.
Yes, it was the last board governance that we
It was
did
the
with
board governance, it
Peter.
wasn't the last meeting, it was the board governance training.
No, the one with Peter.
Yeah, yes. You want to read it?
Yes, 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 yes.
So at the January 25th, 2024 special board meeting, governance with Peter Fagan. At some point there is, I do have in my minutes, it says Peter and board members discuss when a situation occurs that new information has been received for a board member, which they feel changes their vote on an already passed item. He describes that a board member can make a motion to reconsider. Another board member needs to second the motion, and the motion must pass to bring back the item for reconsideration at the next meeting.
Okay,
And that's where.
so I make a motion to reconsider this, consent, what that item on, it was on the consent calendar. I have it. It was item 16D, I think it was. And it was the,
On the agenda. What new information?
the new information
What new
is that,
information is it?
the new information is that I didn't think it was on the consent calendar the last time.
That's not
It's
new
It's new
information.
information that it's too much money. That's the new information. That's the new information. I move motion I move to reconsider. I need a second. So we got a second.
You can bring it back, it's like, it's up to the board. if they want to
I'm
bring
gonna
it back.
check with.
I mean, we've already made financial commitments, so, but
Well, then there's other things to consider, because actually in my mind, new information kind of came out a little bit tonight that we're gonna discuss further. So I think it is something maybe you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll check with Peter and then I will.
Well,
get
there's a
back to
motion
you.
and a second on the floor. So
Okay.
we need to have a vote.
Okay, all in favor of bringing back? But how,
It's here, I'll put it.
how can we have a vote on something that is not on the agenda?
It's a motion to reconsider. You can, it was noticed. You only need to give a minimum of 3 days notice. Because it was noticed on the last meeting, I'm
It's not noticed
assuming,
for tonight.
it doesn't matter. I'm assuming, it's already been noticed. And we're talking bringing it back next time anyway, so, see, that was the March 14th meeting.
Okay,
It was
it
item,
would have to pass.
hold on, it was items.
All in favor of bringing, what number was that?
It's
I
item
would have to look it up.
16F.
16F?
No, D.
16D from the regular board meeting on
March 14th.
March 14th, say aye. Any, noes? Nay. Any abstentions? It doesn't pass.
Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. I'll pay that.
You adjourn?
I adjourn this meeting at 11:28.
Was appropriate $330,000 or something. And